across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company this Thursday afternoon. A really shocking story from the Metropolitan Police. Rapists and violent thugs were hired by the Metropolitan Police as full checks were axed in a rush to recruit officers. They wanted the money, they wanted to get the extra officers, and they didn't do the basic background checks on bobbies that were then put on the beat. It's an astonishing story. It shows the trust in our police is at an all-time low. And when we look at West Midlands Police, which we're going to talk about again today, Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable, clinging on to his job, it really does speak volumes. Has a gang been smashed? That's something else we're talking about. A Turkish man jailed for supplying thousands of UK-bound small boats. And Reform versus Reeves, flagrant racism row about benefits. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Labour, which would have curbed jury trials even without the court's backlog. That's the allegation from Robert Jenrick, who is the Shadow Justice Secretary. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about fat jabs as well. Are you on Ozempic or Wegovy or any of those? Apparently, users pile fat back on 4 times faster than regular dieters because the jabs, they don't have to have any real, what's the word I'm looking for, effort themselves. Willpower, that's the word I'm looking for. Badenoch as well, talking about our blueprint to see if Britain's pubs, could they have a reprieve from these crushing rates, these business rates? We'll talk about that as well. Certainly there's some reporting today saying that the government may be about to do yet another U-turn. This is a U-turn I would welcome, but they shouldn't have said they're going to put the business rates up in the first place. One pub in Wales that a viewer sent me information about their rates going up from about £12,000 to £32,000 a year. Yes, really. We'll talk through all of that, but I want to talk about it with you as well as all my great guests. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can also send me a voice note, less than a minute please, to 0344 499 1000. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on that number too. So much to discuss between now and 7 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk Drive. Isabel Oakeshott is Talk's international editor and joins me now. Hello Isabel, how are you today?
Oh, I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, very well, and many congratulations on your engagement as well. Let's talk about the major story that is really quite a shocker today. Rapists and violent thugs hired by the Metropolitan Police as full checks were axed in a rush to recruit officers. Isabel, you're our international editor. You see this from all sorts of different angles. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a complete heart sinker, but what it immediately did is remind me that only a few months ago I wrote a story for the Daily Telegraph about similar lapses in process and protocol for recruitment for another police force, West Yorkshire Police in this case. And my story then was based on information from a whistleblower, and as always with these things, what makes it into print is actually a much watered down version of what you're really told, because of course we all have to hold ourselves to the highest possible standards of being able to prove things and having enough evidence to run things. But you know, the truth from that whistleblower was really more shocking than the story that was eventually run, which was bad enough in itself, which was basically that the whole kind of recruitment process was being distorted by a rush for diversity and inclusion. And this came from someone who had been involved in the recruitment process. They themselves were, part of their job was to hire people, so they should have known and did know what was really going on. And so in some ways I'm sad but not surprised that this is happening. But, you know, are we really that desperate to hire people for this job? And if so, What exactly is going wrong that it's such an unappealing job that we're not getting better candidates?
Well, you're absolutely right, and certainly people who think they can just slip through the net. But then it was shown that they could slip through the net, because very basic checks that would be done for many jobs with any degree of responsibility or looking to the public. There are so many things. I mean, I do a bit of volunteering with in the care system, for example. I've had various checks on my background, disclosure and borrowing service, criminal records check, that kind of thing. And you would think that this would just be a really, really basic thing. Why did the police kind of rush towards this? Was it simply money?
I think that there are very well documented issues with recruitment across our police forces, and a lot of that has to do with those towards the end of their time in the police leaving much younger than one would really like them to, because the most experienced officers obviously have arguably the most to actually give to the service, but many of them are giving up on it because they feel very disillusioned with the direction of things. They are fed up with all the paperwork. They are exasperated by what they see as the wrong priorities in policing. The fact that it just takes so much time to fill out forms whenever you arrest anyone or charge anyone, and so on and so forth. So this is a much wider problem. And I think that the caliber of our police is just nowhere near good enough. Of course, there are brilliant, incredibly effective and talented police officers, but it feels as if we could do so much better. And that's a whole combination of things, isn't it?
Absolutely. Tell us about this Turkish man jailed for supplying thousands of UK-bound small boats. Have we finally smashed a gang?
How many people have been jailed? Can you just bring us up to speed with that? Is it one bloke, or is it?
well, indeed. I'm not sure that's lots and lots of gangs. It's fascinating how he raked in millions while masquerading as the boss of a legitimate maritime supply company. But no, Keir Starmer, I think he said 52 gangs had been smashed, but I think he just plucked that out of the air.
I think he very definitely did pluck that out of the air. The reality is that the trade in channel crossings is booming, that there is a huge mismatch between the supply of crossings, particularly at this time of year when the weather is so dangerous for those boats, and the demand for places on boats. We've seen this in the work that we've done for Talk, going undercover in those migrant camps in Calais and Dunkirk. Literally people waiting months per chance to get on a boat to come to the UK. And, the gangs are in no way intimidated or put off or dismayed by, some fringe person of the operation being finally caught and brought to justice. This is a massive, massive multinational network. This isn't just like a few blokes who've decided to make a few quid by, seeing if they can run a little transport, offer across the channel. This is a very, very sophisticated, multi-layered criminal operation involving lots of very, very shady operators, and potentially even the support of shadowy figures in rogue states.
Very, very interesting. Tell us about this row between Reform UK and Rachel Reeves. This is kind of astonishing. It's about the two-child benefit cap, and Nigel Farage confirmed Reform UK's MPs would vote against lifting the cap because it would benefit huge numbers of foreign-born people. Rachel Reeves told The Guardian, "I don't really care what colour a kid's skin is. Some deserve to be in poverty and some don't. That makes me pretty angry. Does Nigel Farage want to go around and say, white, yeah, you can have the money, black, no, I'm sorry, it's not for you? What sort of country does he think we are?" And Zia Youssef, who's Reform UK's head of policy, has said, "Rachel Reeves comes out as an ethno-nationalist. She believes only white people can be British. She's accused Nigel Farage of racism for wanting to keep the two-child cap in place for everyone except British-born families, equating foreign-born with non-white." What do you make of this, Isabel?
I make of this that it is just so wearying and feeble and low level. And this is what, folks, we're going to have to put up with for the next 3 years. That is completely fabricated, deliberately distorted, representation of legitimate policies by the ever more desperate and terrified Labour Party and others on the left. Reforms policy, and let me be clear, I'm not here as a champion of the Reform Party or, to be a mouthpiece for reform policies. I've had some of my own question marks about about the child benefit cap, the two-child cap. I think it's quite a difficult debate, that one. So I'm not just going to sit here and say Reform's got a brilliant policy and I agree with everything about it. But what I can be very, very clear about is that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is either stupid, and I don't believe she's really that stupid, or very deliberately mischaracterizing what Reform's policy is here, because it has nothing to do with skin colour. Literally nobody in the Reform Party, and certainly nobody at the top of the party, has ever said that child benefit should be distributed or withheld on the basis of anyone's skin colour. She has completely made that up.
She's certainly mischaracterised it, and I think, and I wonder what you think, Isabel.
Worst form of politics for me. That is the worst form of politics, because it is trying to mislead voters in the most cynical way.
I think it's part of the ABN strategy, anyone but Nigel. I think all of this, you can put it all together. You can put the moves towards cozying up to the Liberal Democrats, maybe even the Greens as well. I think you can look at tactical voting. I think you can look at Caerphilly. I think you can look at all this sort of united front against Nigel Farage, against Reform UK, where there are so many parties in the mainstream that are saying we will do anything we can to keep them out, no matter where the chips may fall after that. Am I being too cynical?
I don't think you're being too cynical at all. I think this is a question of how low can you go. Imagine how low they can go and then take it even lower. I'll tell you what I'm looking at right now. We're showing pictures on the screen of Rachel Reeves, and I'm just thinking, you are pathetic. And I don't think that the vast majority of voters in our country who are absolutely exasperated by the ballooning of the welfare state and how much money has been diverted to foreign nationals, some of whom are actually sending this money home to their countries of origin. People are exasperated by that, and they're not going to be put off their instinctive and well-founded frustration with that because Rachel Reeves tries to make it into some kind of fake race row.
There may well be a U-turn for the government coming on business rates for pubs, but many pubs I spoke to yesterday were worried about this new drink-drive limit. Nigel Farage says it's dreamt up by an Islington cycle elite. Is he right?
Kev and I were talking about this on his show last night. It's just such an odd policy to have suddenly come out with, isn't it? Where has this come from? I don't have like hugely strong feelings about it.
It's an important issue, but it's in relative terms, it's a minor issue. And Keir Starmer says, I'm not denigrating it, but Keir Starmer says any minute not talking about the cost of living crisis is a wasted minute. Well, he talks about lots of other things, and actually you're exacerbating the cost of living crisis by saying that you can't go to the country pub and have 1 pint. Now, that will impair your driving, but also I wouldn't have a drink and drive at all. But I just think it's one of those kind of reasonably minor issues, and it's basically accepted in all of society, not all of society, but vast majority, 99% of people accept that drinking and driving is completely taboo and completely beyond the pale.
Exactly that. I mean, almost everybody accepts that, and almost everybody, otherwise we'd all be in prison now, is able to make a judgment about whether in their own individual circumstances they can have a glass of wine or a pint of beer, one only, whatever is the legal threshold, before driving home. And that can vary. I know myself, if I've not eaten all day and then I had a glass of wine, I'm probably going to be feeling a little bit merry, and I'm probably not going to be the best driver. So I just wouldn't do that. If you've been, eating properly and you've had a nice meal and you've had, a few sips of wine, half a glass of wine or whatever, that wouldn't affect me at all. And most people are perfectly able to make those kind of responsible judgments. And I just find it a bit of an odd one for them to suddenly start coming out with now. And, pubs need this like a hole in the head at this point, as if they've not got enough things to be.
Well, exactly. I spoke to someone the other day who said running a pub is 40% more expensive now than it was during COVID, and people are wonder why the prices have gone up. Isabel, thank you. That's Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor here at Talk, joining us there. Just a reminder that we're welcoming the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off the year than with the chance to win some serious cash? Yes, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway, and it could be yours. It's 26k for 2026. Here is how to enter. For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. That's 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at noon on Friday. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. You need to be in the UK and aged over 18. This is a network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Good luck. Lots more to come in just a minute. We're going to talk to Thomas Godfrey, news reporter from The Sun, about a number of different issues, but particularly that pub issue, the hike in fuel duty as well. We'll talk about that too. I want your views on all of it. Thanks to Paul, who says it's trial and error with this government, clueless, and Amanda, who says our country is being systematically ruined by self-righteous imbeciles in all sectors of authority. Stay with us here on Talk.
These sort of rewirings of the state do need to be done, because I think vast parts of it, the Home Office, I would include in that, the Ministry of Justice, I'd include in that, obviously what the hell is going on in Britain's borders, I'd include in that, and the Met Police, I'd include in that. It's these unwieldy, out of control organisations that actually any one or two cabinet ministers who change colours and parties and stripes every few years, actually they come in and realise they're not in charge. These are being run by the organisations themselves to the detriment of Britain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who's been in touch, including David from Exeter, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. David, you're very welcome to the programme. I think it's the policing issue you want to talk about.
Yeah, initially, but we could go through from policing all the way to national security. But what we're looking at with this, the revelations coming out of the Met now with this from Select Committee, is that we don't really have a police force anymore. What we have is political policing. And the reason for that is socialism requires political policing. It has to have political policing in order to enforce the political agenda. So if people think they've got the old school police constables and all the rest of it anymore, those days are long gone. And the key critical bit to this is that there's no difference in theory or principle between socialism and communism. The only difference is the method that the socialists go about attaining their agenda.
Do you honestly think this is socialism in action? Do you think it's as straightforward as that?
Yes, I do. You know, we've got political judiciary now, the way that's set up, and we've got political justice. So we've got the whole game set and match now of, you know, this is socialism personified. You know,
is there honestly that level of control, David?
Yeah.
Is there coordination here?
Yeah, of course there is. And this bit started with Tony Blair. They took out all the police training colleges, and then the Tories carried on under Oliver Letwin to drum down. You know, they didn't want educated police officers that were 6 foot. They just wanted people that were equivalent to shelf stackers, I believe, was the thing at the time. But that's what we're facing with this.
And you think that can lead
policing?
Okay, and you think that can lead directly to the Metropolitan Police saying, "Come one, come all. Doesn't matter if you're a wrong 'un, we'll take you on."
I think it leads to the whole way that this is managed. You could weave in lots of sort of data points into this, from the rape gangs across the country, the way that whatever laws choose to be ignored or enforced, the way that people are arrested and smashed over a tweet, you know, this sort of thing. It is literally political policing.
Okay.
Churchill warned of this in one of his speeches post-war, that what socialism would require would be political policing. He actually referred to it as some form of Gestapo, and he was pilloried at the time for it. But now we're looking down the barrel at it.
Okay, David, listen, thank you for that. I wonder what you think about what David said. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. I want to speak to Thomas Godfrey now, news reporter at The Sun. Hi, Thomas, how are you doing?
Hello,
you
good afternoon, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Tell us what on earth is going on with business rates for pubs. We've talked about this quite a lot over the last week or so. There are quite a number of pubs, restaurants, clubs. We're talking to the Nighttime Industries Association a little bit later on. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is we understand now that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is preparing a U-turn, is preparing to reverse the decisions made in the budget that were going to clobber pubs and other hospitality venues with massively increased business rates. There were quite substantial fears among many senior figures in the industry that it may put hundreds, if not thousands, of venues across the country completely out of business.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I've literally just received this from a trusted listener who sends me comments and messages and information. Apparently, there is a Hard Rock Cafe in Manchester that has announced it is closing. Can we just check what's happening with the other Hard Rock Cafes? There's a big number of Hard Rock Cafes right across the country. There's one in London as well, and this is Scott's Hard Rock. Sad to report that after rocking the world for 25 years, Hard Rock Cafe Manchester is now closed. So we can see this every day.
Well, there we are.
That there are all these sorts of venues where people get food and drink that are going.
And there are all these sorts of knock-on effects. Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City manager, closed his restaurant last month, or announced it was going to close at the end of the year. Tom Kerridge, the chef, was, I think, on another radio station, said his business rates for his venues have gone up by something like 115%.
Oh yeah.
Completely ridiculous increases that very few people in the hospitality industry,
Yes.
which is a thin margins if you want to run a hospitality business,
Totally.
can actually afford.
Between 4 and 6% margins sometimes. There was actually another trusted listener who sent me in a few days ago, about a week ago actually, about a pub in Wales that their business rates were something like £12,500, and they were told from April they're going to go up to £32,000.
Exactly, it's not sustainable. It got so far in this process, had the Treasury, that pub bosses were threatening to strike. They just simply shut down their doors, and I think Nigel Farage said yesterday, every pub's a parliament. We need people to get into pubs to boost the hospitality sector. They're great places to go. They're community hubs. King Charles, a great advocate of the pub as well, famously.
Yeah, pub is the hub.
It will be great news for many people today that Rachel Reeves is seemingly at least going to row back on that in the next 24 hours or so.
But yet again, here we are, Thomas, yet again, a policy which a blind man on a galloping horse can see is a stupid idea which is going to create unemployment. Those people who are unemployed will then be drawing down unemployment benefit because they won't be able to get other jobs because lots of places will close that match their skill set. And then, lo and behold, the tax take goes down and the welfare bill goes up. I'm not an economist. It's so obvious.
It's completely obvious, and also when these measures were announced, it was after some of the sort of last stragglers of the COVID relief had been taken away. So pubs not only had the relief taken away they might have had as a hangover from when they reopened, but also then told that their business rates are going to go up. I mean, they're being hit with what was effectively a sort of red card for many of them, and it was going to force quite a lot of pubs just to shut down entirely, and that is not what anyone wants when I think at least one pub a day is shutting its doors for good anyway, even without this measure. So it will be welcome relief for lots of pub landlords across the country, and also people who enjoy going to the pub, which I think basically counts all 70 million people in this country.
Yes, including me, a non-drinker. I love the pub.
Well, exactly, that measure may be going away. And look, 1,000 pubs banned Labour MPs from going in. Maybe after hearing this U-turn, some of them might finally reconsider. Yet to hear if any Labour MPs have actually been turned away at the door of any pubs, but maybe that's something they'll be hoping to avoid now their Chancellor has rode back.
Maybe Rachel can get a shandy after all. Tell us about hiking fuel duty. Will this be another U-turn?
Yeah, here we go. I mean, Rachel Reeves giveth, Rachel Reeves taketh away. I mean, this is something the Sun has led the way on now for more than a decade. Keeping fuel duty frozen, our Keep It Down campaign. Fuel duty frozen under consecutive governments now for a very long time, and there was some talk before the last budget that Rachel Reeves would be the one to break that streak, to put it up, and it seems now that is going to happen in September. Fuel duty is going to go up. He thinks that effectively what can happen, Keir Starmer, this is the Prime Minister, needs to honour his pledge to make voters feel better off at the pump. The Treasury telling us earlier today that prices are at their lowest since 2021. Obviously, in the intermediate period, we've had all sorts of things that has pushed the price up. The Russia-Ukraine war, for example, being the main architect of that. And so, effectively, where we're at now is families, hard workers, people who get up, people who drive vans, which millions of working people are going to be hit with what the Road Haulage Association warns could be a hammer blow. And that's why the Sun today calling for that to be delayed. Maybe
you're in your van right now, maybe you've just filled up, or you're thinking about how much it's going to be. Give me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Tell me what you're thinking about this and what your message to Rachel Reeves is. I'd love to hear from some van drivers. I know there are a load of people who listen to this programme in their van. Give me a shout. Tell me about jury trials and what Robert Jenrick's been saying, Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we've had this plan from David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, going to abolish jury trials, something that's been a right, actually, in this country. People have elected to have jury trials for a very long time, hundreds of years, and getting rid of that for trials where single judges now sitting by themselves could give people up to 3 years in prison, quite significant prison sentences. And Robert Jenrick coming out against this, quite consistently coming out against this. And actually, if we could speed up the court backlog, he says, and speed up the time by which people get to trials and actually have more days sitting in court. One of the key aspects of this is that across the country, so many courtrooms just sit empty. I see it all the time when I go to court. There's nothing on the list. There's no judge in there. There's no trials happening. Then there's some sort of error with probation, or there's some sort of error.
And an expert I spoke to yesterday said, if you even threw a little bit of cash at it,
absolutely.
10 million, 15 million pounds, which is not a lot for the government, actually you could solve this problem by getting those sitting days up. This is not about jury trials. The problem in the justice system is not about jury trials. To speed it up, it's more trial days, it's more sitting days.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah Sackman, the Justice Minister, had said that the jury trial system could be abused by criminals, but I mean, we have to decide fundamentally if we want people to have rights or don't want them to have rights. Even if people are criminals, they have the right to have their criminal status determined by a jury of their peers. And I'm frankly not sure why it's something Labour think that we should run away from the traditions which have defined this country for hundreds of years and by which everyone is judged equally. Not, as it's going to be in a few years' time under these plans, by one judge who may well get something wrong, may well let something slip past them.
And it's really interesting that Robert Jenrick says that these comments show Keir Starmer doesn't trust ordinary people. He also says they would have curbed jury trials without the court backlog. He said Labour just said the quiet part out loud. David Lammy's plan to slash jury trials is ideological, not practical. Like Tony Blair before them, they don't like jury trials, they just don't trust ordinary people. Now, Sarah Sackman has denied that and said that this is the previous government closed half the courts in England and Wales. Who did they entrust to be guardians of our justice system? Liz Truss, Dominic Raab and Chris Grayling. They decimated our legal aid system. Actually didn't, if that's reducing by 10%, so maybe you should get a dictionary there, Sarah. They decimated our legal aid system. They all but broke our prison system, and the result, he's right. There is consensus that we're in crisis and that the status quo cannot be tolerated.
Well, I've sat in enough trials now to know that the vast majority of judges judges tell juries, which are members of the public when they're sworn in, that you are the guardians of our justice system. It's not the Lord Chancellor, it's not the civil servants in the MOJ. And something Robert Jenrick said, which I think will strike a chord with working lawyers and people in the justice system, that juries are not, his quotes, juries are not some bureaucratic add-on to our justice system. Juries are the means by which the public consents to and participates in the exercise of the gravest power of the state, the power to convict and imprison our fellow citizens. That's an immense power, and I'm not sure it can be put in the hands of one person. I am much more comfortable, even if I am a criminal, with that power being put in the hands of 12 of my peers.
Yeah. Tell us about these 12-year-olds who don't realise they're actually going to be able to vote in the next election. No one's told them, apparently.
This is great, isn't it? Nigel Farage, actually, it turns out, when they did this polling, which is in the Times today, the leader which 12-year-olds recognise the most.
He's huge on TikTok.
Rather incredibly.
He's huge on TikTok.
Well, hence why Keir Starmer now is playing catch-up with his TikTok, even though, as we both know, you can't have it on government phones, but the Prime Minister can,
because of the Chinese.
Can appear. Well, exactly, that's the risk at least. So this polling, really, really fascinating stuff, because, of course, we know that 16-year-olds in 2029 will be able to vote for the first time. Now, the opposition parties have accused Labour of effectively rigging the system. They know that if 16-year-olds can vote, they say, they might pick up another 500,000 more votes, and who knows how critical that will be in a five-way fight, hypothetically, for 10 Downing Street. Academics as well coming out today in the Times and saying that better political education is going to be needed in schools so that people can go and vote based on policies, or teenagers really can go and vote based on the policies.
I thought this for a very long time.
Policies that the policies that these parties will present in their manifestos at the next election, so they can vote based on those and not based on who has the most TikTok likes or who's the funniest on stage. I think one of the risks with this policy when it was introduced is that it's sort of effectively, we may end up reducing who you vote for down to a popularity contest. Adults, the vast majority of them, we want to believe and we like to believe, and I think this is true as well, do genuinely vote based on the policies that are presented.
Although some of them do vote because they like Keir Starmer's hair.
Well, or the glasses.
That's it. Whoever bought them.
Or the whoever bought them. Or the laddish banter. Actually, that one. That one, maybe about 2 people voted based on that. Both of them probably.
If you voted for
wrong.
Keir Starmer based on his laddish banter, I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was a study based on 50 Year 8 pupils in Bristol and County Durham, but the number, of course, who will be able to vote at the next election, 1.7 million.
Yeah.
That is a hugely substantial...
Especially when you get into some constituencies where it may only be down. West Reading's constituency is down to between 500 and 600 votes.
Yeah.
It could be very, very interesting. Thomas, thank you very much. As always, good to hear from the Tea God, Thomas Godfrey, news reporter at The Sun. Thank you for coming in. Martin in Leicester says this people smuggler would have got 5 years out and 2 here and would be running his business from prison with a mobile phone. Zarina says, I believe that the immigrants are earning and investing back into their own economies. Property is often cheaper in their own countries, and this leaves us Brits in a desperate situation. We earn, pay our bills, and invariably have nothing left to save for our futures. As individuals, we need a mindset change. A caller got in touch a few evenings ago, and he was working and living in a tent just so that he could plan for his future and that of his kids. James is a coach of 25 years and says, crash dieting, we're talking about fat jobs as well today, crash dieting has always resulted in more weight gain once the diet has stopped. This is due to muscle wastage during the weight loss, which can potentially cause permanent damage to metabolism. Rapid weight loss isn't an issue if it's medically necessary, but for those using the fat jobs for aesthetics rather than medical reasons, the dosage needs to be low enough to keep the reduction slow so it doesn't deplete muscle tissue, but also it needs to run alongside strength exercise and nutritional education. I wonder how much strength exercises and nutritional education is actually going on alongside those fat jobs. I think people are simply jabbing and going. James is a coach of 25 years, and thank you for that. Lots more to come. We'll also be talking about Maccabi Tel Aviv as well. The police lied and lied and lied and lied again, and we're not going to stop talking about this, because until the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, does the right thing and resigns, it's something I'm going to keep on banging on about. Jake Wallace-Simons is going to give us his view on it. We're also going to talk a bit later this hour about the fat jabs. As I said, whatever your perspective is on whatever we're talking about and whatever Thomas said, do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Lorraine, who says Reeves has deliberately fabricated racism claims against reform. I'm sure she would deny that, but it seems pretty clear from what she said. Farage did a press conference on the child benefit cap, and many journalists have also misquoted Farage to malign Reform UK. We, the electorate, now know Labour and its cabinet lie like cheap rugs. Lying is like a compulsory requirement for the cabinet. Reeves is simply playing gutter politics. She should get her own house in order and stop destroying this country with her clueless, self-righteous ideology, says Lorraine. Steve says Labour won't be bothered about pubs going under, as it's not somewhere that big demographics of their voter base go. Same with betting shops. Clayton in Dartford says millions of Muslims don't enjoy going to the pub, which is why these bunch of cretins we have ruining this country are closing them down. And Joanna in Salisbury says socialist policing, as your caller said, is what we have. It's just become impossible for a genuine officer in the force as others toe a line to progress. Joanna, thank you for that. You usually say hi Cardi P, but you haven't in that message. Is this something I've said? Joanna, you're very welcome to keep contributing, and thank you for your thoughts on all of that. One other big story we've been covering this week is the story of Maccabi Tel Aviv and these police chiefs who've been giving evidence to Parliament. I really wanted to hear what Jake Wallace-Simons had to say about this, the author and columnist, author of Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, which is out now. In fact, I gave it as a Christmas present to a couple of people. Jake, I wonder, given what that Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, is still clinging on to his job, and a source actually in the Home Affairs Select Committee told me yesterday there's so much more to this, that person said. They're going to keep going on about this. I just wonder what your perspective is.
Well, I think that it's very clear to me, and I don't say this lightly, that Craig Guilford has lied, that his senior team have lied. They fabricated evidence. They've sought to cover up the fact that their weakness has allowed them to be manipulated by their Islamist constituents and officials around them. And they've become the tool in the hands of the Islamists who are trying to subvert our democracy and install a Sharia state instead, which is aligns with the Muslim Brotherhood playbook as exposed by the government report in 2015. Now, of course he should go. Of course those around him need to go. But my concern really is that they'll be replaced by people who are just identical to them in terms of their outlook and their inability to stand up to this very complex challenge from Islamists in our societies. This is a problem which is very deeply embedded. The Muslim Brotherhood and other extremist groups have been laying the groundwork for this insurgency for a very, very long time indeed. They've moved their centre of gravity from the Middle East, having been kicked out and banned by many Arab countries, to the West, including in Britain.
Just tell us a little, just pause there for a second, Jake, and tell us a little bit about the Muslim Brotherhood. There'll be quite a few viewers and listeners who don't know that much about it necessarily. Unbelievably not a prescribed organisation here in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood really is the jihadi group that you've never heard of. In fact, it's the most important jihadi group because it's that one group that Hamas came from, that Al-Qaeda came from, that the Islamic State came from, and indeed the Iranian theocratic regime was heavily influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood as well. So it gives birth to these violent organizations. Itself, it is willing to undergo, to carry out extreme violence, but it tries to hold it as a last resort. What it tries to do is infiltrate a society, gradually take over that society from within by getting its people elected into local office, into national office, by manipulating the police, by manipulating all the levers of an open society, and then using our own laws and our own checks and balances against us to march through our institutions and eventually, over a period of generations, subvert our societies to Sharia law, subject them to Sharia law. All of that wasn't my judgment. It's the judgment of the government report in 2015 by the late Sir Charles Farr and Sir John Jenkins, two very distinguished civil servants with intelligence backgrounds. The government's been aware of it since then and still has not banned this organisation from our shores, and hence the debacle of Maccabi Tel Aviv, in my view.
It's interesting as well that we have another piece of reporting today, not necessarily one you will have seen, Jake, which talks about the Metropolitan Police's recruitment, the fact that they have failed dramatically, and in the search for quick funding to get more officers, they didn't do basic background checks in some of the officers that they recruited. Trust in policing is a hugely important issue. Trust in the institutions of society, which has been eroded to such a huge degree, is a massive issue. There are so many Jewish people I know who do not trust the police. Why on earth, I would honestly, sincerely ask, would people trust Craig Guilford when he and his senior officers have been brought back to the Home Affairs Select Committee for a second time? That's unprecedented, to talk about this issue, to give more information, and questioned by some members of that committee, going through information that wasn't given properly, information that was retrospectively put into reports, meetings where there was no note of it, and then contradictory information given. It is, as one member of the committee put it, he said, it's not great, is it? With classic understatement.
Yes, I mean, in defence of Craig Guilford, I mean, there isn't much defence you could make of that man, but in defence of him, I mean, he's obviously weak, he's been lying, trying to cover his tracks. But the problem is that the police are under so much pressure not to be, quote, Islamophobic, not to be, quote, racist, not to be in any way prejudicial against minorities, that's become their overriding concern. And so he's so desperate not to be Islamophobic that he's ended up playing into the hands of the Islamists and being easily manipulated by them. And that's the same with the other story that you mentioned. I believe it was the one in the Telegraph this morning, where the police employed a black officer who happened to be a child rapist because they were desperate to fill quotas of ethnic minority officers. And so they overlooked the fact that he had that record. And in the end, it was confirmed and he was convicted.
Astonishing.
I mean, these are examples of the way in which what's commonly called woke ideology, or an obsession with identity politics and with being politically correct, is actually preventing the police from doing their job, from policing us without fear or favour, which is obviously a very dangerous situation for the country to be in, because Islamists, you know, child rapists and other assorted criminals and nasties can not just manipulate the police, but can even join their ranks. And how are we going to be secure after that?
Well, exactly. Jake, thank you for joining us. Really good to get your view on it. Jake Wallace-Simons, the author and columnist and author of Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. David has sent us a voice note. In the voice note, he mentions Bakerloo, but I think he's talking about Peterloo. Let's hear what he's saying here.
Good evening, Peter. I see 22 Labour councils are set to postpone the elections amid the reform surge over in England, plus some Conservatives and Liberal Democrats. Now, surely this is not democratic. If you think back to 1819, a place called Waterloo, or I should say Bakerloo, where the people were shot and killed by state troops because they wanted one man, one vote. And now look what's happening. Labour in and denying people the vote. Democracy delayed is democracy denied. Good show, Peter.
Thank you, David. I think you're talking about Peterloo. 60,000 working class people from the towns and villages of what is now Greater Manchester marched to St Peter's Field in central Manchester to demand political representation at a time when only wealthy landowners could vote. Their peaceful protest turned bloody when Manchester magistrates ordered a private militia paid for by rich locals to storm the crowd with sabres. An estimated 18 people died and more than 650 were injured in the chaos. Let's hope nothing like that happens. And yes, I do absolutely think that these elections being postponed is an issue we absolutely have to talk to. And if they're delayed a year, maybe that's okay. It's not great, but maybe it's all right. If it's 2 years, well, they should just have an election after 5 years. If there's a councillor elected for a 5-year term, they should serve a 5-year term. And if there's an election even for another 2 years, for a 2-year period, that's fine. I'm happy enough with that. I think that's an okay use of taxpayers' money. Matthew is in Warrington. I put out the call earlier on for delivery drivers, if you're in your van, to give me a shout about the cost going through the roof, especially in regard to petrol. Matthew heeded that call. Give me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Matthew, what do you think?
Well, Keir Starmer started the week saying that he's going to concentrate on cost of living crisis and he's going to help us all out and life will get better. And then he didn't mention it at all that they're going to put the extra 5p back on fuel duty back in. But it's not just the fuel duty that's going to go up. You know, as a local delivery driver, which I deliver, you know, door to door, I'm a self-employed every driver. The maintenance of my van, getting your van fixed now is not cheap.
Yes.
Your insurances, so you've got to have public liability, courier insurance, goods in transit, that's all going up. Your van I actually keep 2 vans. I have a spare one because my van breaks down. I've still got to cover my work.
Yes, of course, and that could be really significant if you can't do that. Yeah.
And to hire a van, it's not cheap. You're looking at £130 a day. A lot of firms won't touch you because you're a delivery driver.
Yes.
So nothing's getting easy. It's all just, instead of lying to us, why doesn't he just say to us, listen, it's going to be 2 years. We want to get the taxes down. Yeah, okay, we've helped people on welfare. Now we're going to help the people who are paying for that welfare we've got to knuckle down and give you some proper support. They don't know. All these people in Westminster Bubble, they don't know what people out in all these counties going in. I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm in work for 5. I've just finished now. And there's thousands of people like me going out doing that every day. And they don't know it.
And that's what worries me, Matthew. Exactly what you've said there. That is what worries me about this government. That is what worries me about these decisions that are being made, not just on fuel duty, which will affect you, but on things like business rates for pubs. Have they ever run a pub? Do they know what that's like? Do they know what it's like to get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to work at 5 o'clock and deliver around all the time, have all those packages? Loads of people order things and never think about the delivery drivers. What's life like for them? You've just done basically a 12-hour day. That's a tough day. Do they get that? Do they understand that? Do you feel, Matthew, that the government is on your side?
No, never. This Labour government, I didn't think the Tory government was really on our side, but at least they were trying to make things, cut your taxes down. This government is the worst government I've ever known, and it's frightening. It's really frightening. And it's not just that, the cost, because they're going to put cost of fuel. That increase will get passed on to the shops.
Yeah.
Your price of your food's going to go up. Your price of your clothes is going to go up. Everything's going up. So then obviously inflation goes up. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to get any better. The only people who are going to do all right in this country are the people who are on benefits.
Matthew, you've made
if you're earning £30,000 in benefits, you should pay tax on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You've made some really good points there, Matthew. You've spoken for so many people, maybe in their vans right now, going around the country, backbone of the country. You're self-employed, delivering things that people need, delivering things that people have ordered, and the government, in Matthew's opinion, just doesn't get it. We'll talk to a couple more delivery drivers. If you're one of them, give me a shout, 0344 499 1000, or you just have an opinion on this. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear from you. We're going to talk about fat jobs next. Stay with us.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Zorina says, it seems to me that the current government are making reforms on stuff that was not highlighted in their campaign trail. What they campaigned on has not yet seen the light of day. Do they remember the slogan, smash the gangs? It's a very good point. And Gary says, as we know, the world oil powers are actually cutting production and stabilising availability and costs. So is the rest of the economic flatlining. It is bonkers to increase and panic on taxes and expenses. Rachel Reeves forcing an increase will in turn destabilise and force a mass recession again, just like COVID. It is an utterly crazy government, says Gary. Thank you for that. I want to talk about fat jabs now, because fat jab users pile fat on 4 times faster than regular dieters. Doctors are calling for jabs for life. Well, maybe people should just eat proper food for life. Maybe that would be part of it. Dr. Leila Handbeck is the Chief Executive of the Independent Pharmacies Association. Dr. Handbeck, thanks for joining me today. I am really worried about us simply medicating a problem. You look at the United States, Robert Kennedy, obviously not a perfect individual, but he is someone who said yesterday, we've got to start eating real food. Medicating things that we can actually sort out simply by eating good food concerns me, especially when people are saying if you want to keep the weight off, you've got to keep injecting yourself or taking a pill for the rest of your life. What do you think, Leila?
Well, these fat jabs, as we call them, they are effective in helping people lose weight, but they've got to be part of an integrated plan. And as you say, people need to have a healthy lifestyle and combine it with exercise and healthy eating. And essentially, it's all about having a package of weight management rather than just relying on these weight loss jabs.
But medicating a problem and simply saying there's a pill for that, that is a slippery slope, is it not?
But for many people, they have tried to lose weight, but it's been very difficult for them to lose that. But these jabs basically are very effective. They help them on their way to lose weight effectively. However, it's very important to maintain that by incorporating healthy lifestyle.
But do people do that? We all know people have seen celebrities and people that I've come across, worked with, friends, whoever, who have used the fat jabs. You're absolutely right that they're effective. Are they tested properly? Are you sure they're safe?
Well, we are treating many people with these weight loss jabs, and they are effective. Obviously, under the care of healthcare professionals, it's much more, it's a much better way to go forward. We know that a lot of people buy these jabs online and they may not be using it appropriately and so on. So therefore, it's very important to have those discussions with a healthcare professional. And we do recommend that in order to maintain a healthy weight and in order to lose weight properly, go to a healthcare professional to ensure that you get
But are people actually going to do that? Because there are loads of people, and they're quite reputable companies and quite professional companies, that will ask you a series of questions. I know because I've seen someone go through it and do it. Will ask you a series of questions. You send them a photograph of you looking as fat as you can, and then they just send it to you through the post.
It's very concerning, and we've asked for regulators to step in to ensure that this doesn't happen. We know that it is happening, and also we know that criminal gangs are spreading fake jabs out there as well. So it's very important to have that sort of interaction with a healthcare professional, but remembering that it's got to be part of a package of healthy lifestyle and healthy eating and exercise.
Leila, you didn't answer my question. Are you sure they're safe?
Well, the clinical trials have demonstrated that they're safe, and obviously NHS are allowing them for these to be prescribed. We know that patients who've gone on them have gone on to lose weight, and it's effective. However, obviously, long-term use of these medicines is something that we don't know how it's going to be. But for now, we know if you're using these medicines for the time that your healthcare professionals have recommended, it's safe.
But if the doctors are saying that actually fat jab users are going to pile fat back on 4 times faster than regular dieters, and saying jabs for life, I mean, we don't know if they're safe for the longer period. And also, it's not really part of a healthier lifestyle, is it? Because the whole point should be, presumably, that you take these jabs for a short-ish period of time, you get the weight down, and then you have a healthier lifestyle. Aren't we just saying, well, just keep taking the pills, just keep injecting yourself, and you don't actually have to change your lifestyle?
But NHS prescribing recommends for 2 years, prescribing of these gels with regards to, for example, Wegovy. But people have to take, as I said, people have to take responsibility in their own hands as well to ensure that they stick to a healthy lifestyle and healthy eating and exercise. Relying just on the jabs is not going to be helping, with maintaining healthy.
But there are going to be loads of people who do that, Leila. I'm sure your advice is very good and consistent, but there are going to be lots of people who don't change their lifestyle at all, and they're presumably part of these people who are piling fat back on 4 times faster than regular dieters.
That's why our job as healthcare professionals is to highlight, to make sure that people understand the importance of having a healthy lifestyle. But at the end of the day, the responsibility will lie with people. If they need to take responsibility in their own hands. We can only advise
Yes.
what is right.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. That's Dr. Leila Handbeck there, Chief Executive of Independent Pharmacies Association. I know I'm going to get questions about whether I have thought about these jabs. Yes, I have. Of course, have I taken them? No, I haven't. I'm not going to. Because I do have a number of worries about it. But yeah, look, I am overweight and will presumably continue to be, although, the diet starts tomorrow. Mike in Whitney says, I live on the edge of the Cotswolds. Many publicans live above their pubs. Many of their staff live in. When they close, they will all go on out of work or other benefits, and even worse, be homeless. Yet another result of ill thought through policy. Second subject, 10 a.m. today, renewables generated 6.2% of our electricity. Thankfully, 63% of it was from gas. Putin's navy could circle the UK and cut the 6 interconnectors, blow up the gas pipe from Norway, and this island is dead in the water. No lights, no heating, chaos. Not pumping our own gas and oil puts us in an extremely dangerous position. Net zero, another ill thought through policy by Oxbridge numpties, says Mike in Whitney. Not everyone who went to Oxbridge is a numpty, hopefully. David in the Cotswolds says, good afternoon, Peter. It just shows how clueless Starmer and Reeves are. Yesterday, Starmer makes headlines with drink driving limits when drug driving is at nightmare levels. Totally agree with you, David. And today, Reeves decides to have a race row with Mr. Youssef over increasing a benefit which everyone knows will be more beneficial to one section of our society than to others, says David in the Cotswolds. Keep your messages coming in, 0344 499 1000. We're going to speak about this potential U-turn on rates for pubs, business rates. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the sanctioned Russian tanker sailing in the English Channel, and about the sport, and about the weather as well. We've got it all for you coming up in the next hour here on Talk. Want to get your voice on the air too, 0344 499 1000. Keep your calls coming in. We'll take as many of them as we can between now and 7.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. It's just gone 5 o'clock. Thank you so much for your company. Loads to talk about, including, is the government going to do another U-turn, this time on business rates for pubs? We're going to find out in the next few days. We'll speak to a landlord and Michael Kill from the Nighttime Industries Association in just a second. We'll be talking to Michael a few times about this. I think there could be a U-turn. I think it's likely. But of course, the government just looks stupid again because they came up with this bonkers policy in the first place. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the sanctioned Russian tanker sailing through the English Channel. We'll also talk about the sport this hour, as well as Sean Custis from The Sun, and take loads of calls, text, tweets and voice notes from you. I want you to get in touch, 0344 499 1000, with whatever is on the tip of your tongue. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please, 0344 499 1000. Same number for WhatsApp text messages and phone calls too. We'll get as many people on the air, as many voices and opinions, whatever they are, on the air between now and 7 o'clock. So stay with me here on Talk. Well, the Maccabi Tel Aviv ban, the Aston Villa match where the fans were banned from it under very controversial circumstances. The West Midlands Police, that's under fire, and Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable, miraculously clinging on to his job. Ray's been in touch with a voice note about this.
Hi Peter, Ray from Taunton. Just to say, you are totally wrong. I don't want the Chief Constable of the West Mids to resign. I want him investigated for malfeasance in public office and possibly charged and thrown out. If he resigns, he'll keep his pension. If he goes as a result of a conviction, he won't. So really, we don't want him to resign.
That's a fair point, Ray. I'll take that on the chin and thank you for it. Angela says, good afternoon. Investigations into the vetting failures by the Metropolitan Police, another story we're talking about, are now taking place. Is this being done by an independent body, or are the Met marking their own homework? How can people feel safe in their presence until all new recruits are checked? And another person says that's another reason to get rid of this Labour government. Amy says, what is it with this government? They come up with policies such as business rates for pubs, changes to disability benefits, inheritance tax on farms, then watch the people they affect stress out and worry, then they U-turn. I'm sure they will also want credit for any U-turn. Well, let's speak to someone who may well be affected by that U-turn. Jonathan Greatorex is with us. He runs the Hand at Llanarmon in Wales. Did I pronounce that correctly, Jonathan? Llanarmon?
Brilliant, absolutely spot on. Really, really well done.
Marvellous, excellent. My Welsh pronunciation is not fabulous. Jonathan, you're a landlord. If the government U-turns, that'll be a massive sigh of relief for you. But of course, I would imagine you've been stressing about this for some time. Just paint the picture for us, what it's like to run a pub, and tell us perhaps, first of all, what your rates were going to go from and to, if you're happy to share that with us.
Yeah, well, we're not quite sure yet because we're looking for the final picture from here in Wales. But you know, let's rewind to sort of 1999, 2000, where hospitality were the first people to be shut down due to COVID. We were the last people to be opened up. We've had a really tough few years. In many businesses have had to borrow hundreds of thousands of pounds worth just to survive. So we're already paying back all that borrowing. This is a hammer blow from an economically illiterate Chancellor of the Exchequer. And it really is.
Yes, it's really interesting you mentioned that. One thing I'm just quickly looking up on my phone, this was sent to me by a trusted viewer who sent me here it is. This is another pub, the Manorbier Castle Inn. I'm not quite sure, Manorbier, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it is in Wales, in your part of the world as well. And it is the valuation for the property. This is the rateable value from the 2023 to now is £13,500. They put this online. This is not secret information. £13,500. From April, if this policy is implemented, that will go up to £33,750. It is a total no-brainer to change this policy. If it's not changed, what will the effect be on you and your pub?
Well, we will have to close, I mean, obviously. But, the big problem we've got, the elephant in the room that the previous government, we tried to talk to them about, is that. because everything that we do here in the United Kingdom is 20% too expensive. Because for everything that you buy, for every pound, that retailer's got to take 20 pence and hand it to the government. Well, it's about 16 pence actually, but that's not the point. But so we are being taxed out of existence. You go to Europe, tax on hospitality there is about 13%. We are asking, and this is the key, because without that cut, the hospitality sector, which is one of the biggest employers in the UK, is going to implode. Mm-hmm. So this is now time for the government to listen, to really listen, and try to understand what we are screaming at them.
Just before you go, Jonathan, can I ask you your thoughts on the drink drive limits and the fact that even one pint or one glass of wine could put you over the limit? Is that something that would affect you there at the Glenarman?
I've got to be honest with you, Peter. I mean, the whole low and no market has really exploded in the last couple of years, realistically. And back in the day where, if you weren't drinking, you would either have a lime soda or a glass of water. These days you can have non-alcoholic gins, you can have non-alcoholic Guinness, you can have non-alcoholic beer. The non-alcoholic market has really exploded. And I think if a pub embraces that, then we've got an offering for someone who doesn't want to drive. And actually, I've not really got a massive problem with it, because I think that there is another, there's
an alternative. Have you taken the keys off people over the years a few times?
Oh, God. Yeah, more times I can. I mean, absolutely, of course, and I will run them home myself. You never drink from duty, and that's the thing you do. But no, look. The other thing is that all these rules are being designed by the moderate elite of Islington. They don't realise that you might have one old boy who goes to the pub because his wife has died. He has one pint and he drives home. We've got to try and find a balance of, let's not get pubs. They're not so, we're not so capitalist pigs. We're quite often, the place that the village comes for funerals.
And actually what the King said, the pub as the hub. Jonathan, great to talk to you. No doubt we will again. Jonathan Greatorex there, he runs The Hand at Glenarman in Wales. Michael Kill is the Chief Executive of the Nighttime Industries Association. Michael, we've spoken a few times on this and I'm delighted to have you back on the programme because finally, maybe they're listening.
Without a doubt, and we're pleased to hear that there's a positive step forward. But with everything, the devil's in the detail, and we don't know what that looks like. But the other thing I think we've got to consider is this narrative is based around pubs, which are a part of our sector, but we also have a broader sector narrative around things like theatres, casinos, late night bars, nightclubs, live music venues, all which are suffering in the same way. So the government have really got to consider the broader sector. Just going after pubs is going to really ramp up some anger from certain parts of the sector, and they are going to push back quite heavily, and it's something we've been championing today. Although, as you can appreciate, to hear there is a U-turn of some sort is there for us to mould and work with the government, which we've been pushing hard on today and over the last couple of days.
Tell me more about other parts of the sector and the pressures they're under, especially in regard to their business rates.
Well, I think the challenge we have is, just talking about something like the Hippodrome Casino in Leicester Square. I mean, they've seen somewhat nearly £1 million worth of increase in their business rates position. As you can imagine, that's a premium site. But we're seeing about 76% increase in general on an average, but we have seen in some cases up to 200% increase in their business rates. And I think the challenge we have is this revaluation piece has really, I think, shocked the Chancellor and the Treasury as much as it has shocked the industry. And that's what they're reacting to. I think this position needs to be dealt with. The modelling needs to be looked at. But the concern and what we're asking to look at is what's the impact assessment? What was done to look at this as a credible policy moving forward? Who stress tested those figures and who asked the right questions? Because we've got a policy in play at the moment that has placed a lot of pressure on businesses unnecessarily who are already under a huge amount of strain.
There is a lovely cafe near me. I go in as often as I can. They do fantastic poached eggs and everything else. Great local business. It's run by two people. I was chatting to one of them the other day, Christine, and she was telling me that their rent is being put up by 35%. I hope it survives because it's a beautiful, lovely cafe with great food near me. And as I say, I go there as often as I can. And it just worries me that there are so many brilliant local businesses that employs a number of people. It employs people part-time, full-time, flexible working, great homemade food. And that is a really good part of the community that I live in my part of London. And my worry is that businesses like that, for lots of reasons, not just business rates, but all these other factors, will be pushed out. You look at pubs, for example, 8 pubs a week are closing, Michael.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you can talk about nightclubs as well. Nearly 3 nightclubs a week closing. Music venues, similarly, under the same sort of pressure. I think the challenge that we have is, we can't keep taking money out of this sector. At some point, we've got to draw back to some level of balance. We're talking about things like policy and legislation coming through, which are going to put added cost pressures, things like the Employment Rights Bill, things like Martin's Law, the counter-terrorism position. But if you think about it, since 2020, we've seen a 30 to 40% increase in operating costs. We've now got 2 cycles of minimum wage increases. We've got NIC contribution increases for employers. The business rates hasn't factored out the way that we hoped it would have in terms of sort of bring us into a position which was stronger. And we're really concerned for the future that things like, alcohol duty and all these taxation positions and levers that have been used are really going to cripple the industry long term.
Listen, there's so much in that, and I wish you well over the next few days. I really, really hope this U-turn happens. The government's going to look stupid again, but they couldn't look more stupid than they do at the moment on this particular issue when it comes to business rates. It's just bizarre economics. Listen, thank you very, very much indeed. That's Michael Kildare, who's the Chief Executive of the Nighttime Industries Association. And one person's texted in to say, I understand pubs are in peril, but please understand every person running any business is getting absolutely hammered by this government. The overhead costs are crippling, and 2026 will see thousands of them give up, not just pubs. That is absolutely the case, and believe me, we're talking to people who do all sorts of different businesses. Tony's in Suffolk and he's a van driver. Tony, tell me your experience.
Well, I'm an electrician. I work mainly all in London, so I travel into London. So all with the fuel, and then you've got the parking, which is £50 odd a day. Then you've got your congestion charge. It's working out not far short of £100 a day. I've got to find
before you start doing electrician work. Yeah.
So you're looking at about £25. I know it's where I live, but it's £25 fuel. But the parking is ridiculous. How much it costs to park in London, and then. As I say, they've just put the congestion charge up about another £3 on top, which is quite a rise. Mm-hmm. So with all that included, before you even start working, and then you've got your cost of your vehicle, the maintenance and everything else, it's just costs an absolute fortune. And trying to find, you've got to put down the price, and the price of the jobs, as I said, I'm an electrician.
You're in Suffolk then, Tony. Are you actively turning down jobs in London? If someone says you can do a job in Suffolk or you can do a job in London, you'll go with the Suffolk job, presumably?
Yeah, but mainly I do work for contractors, and I go into London. But I could actually go by, but even trying to go by train now. If you want to, you've got to buy a whole week's ticket to make it viable to actually go into London. Otherwise, if you buy a daily ticket, it's like, it's double the cost to buy a daily ticket. And then you've got the parking at the train station. But you're trapped, really, because you've got your vehicle, you've got all your equipment in your vehicle. You can't take that on the train, so you have to have it with you. So if you work in London, as I said, you have to pay the money, and it's just killing you, really. It's so expensive. It's nearly £500 a week.
So you're a contractor. You're doing work for other people. Yeah. Have they increased that? Has that gone down? Can you make ends meet here?
Obviously you've got work and you've got guys working.
But you're presumably passing that on to them. You're passing that on to your clients, of course, and they're under pressure too.
Yeah, they got to keep putting their prices. So it just gets fed down the line. I know, but it's still, some people don't want to pay the extra money you're charging. So obviously your margin is dropping all the time because it's just it's huge amount of money to be paying out a week, and there doesn't seem any into it. Just constantly putting out. Prices for parking.
Yeah.
You go to Islington and. You park in Islington, it's £28, nearly £30 it must be now for 2 hours.
That's crazy. For 2 hours, nearly 15 quid an hour.
2 hours.
Park a car.
And then if I go just across the road, I think it's the Camden, just across the road to Camden Borough, it drops down by about £7-8 for the 2 hours.
Mad. Tony,
and the traffic warden, I said to her, I've got a parking ticket. Now, what people are doing in London now is cheaper to get a parking ticket than to pay the parking.
Hold on. So there are people who are actually, instead of paying the parking, they're just getting the ticket and paying the ticket.
You'll get a parking ticket. Now, I had a traffic warden come up to my van early in the morning when I was doing parking in this place near Islington Borough. I said, is there not a parking place around here that I'm parking my van and it's cheaper? She said, are you going to be here all day? I said, yes. She said, it'd be cheaper to get a parking ticket. Now, that was coming from the parking warden. I thought that was ridiculous. So you pull up in the morning, I'll just leave my van, walk away, get them a parking ticket, and it was cheaper to get a parking ticket than pay the parking all day.
That's mad. How much was the parking ticket?
I think it's about 65 quid it was. So it would have cost me £22, 8 hours, so you're looking at about 80 quid for the day parking.
So you voluntarily got a parking ticket?
I'll get parking tickets, and you'll see vans all parked up, and even cars as well, getting parking tickets rather than pay the parking. It's just ridiculous now. Trying to make a living.
Completely mad. Tony, thank you for that. I wish you well, and I wish you well in your business as well. Tony in Suffolk there, really interesting. Have you ever done that? Have you ever voluntarily got a parking ticket because it's cheaper? I mean, presumably it's only going to happen in really expensive places like the centre of cities, but that is crazy. Goodness me. Lots of people getting in touch on fat jabs as well. Dr. Jackson in London says on weight loss GLP treatments, please don't forget that the remarkable benefits for cardiovascular diseases, some vascular, renal and inflammatory improvements may linger for months, but not indefinitely after treatment stops. Craig says the advice that Layla gave is crazy. They can be used as part of a healthy lifestyle. Healthy lifestyle would mean you don't need them in the first place. It's money-making madness, in my opinion, says Craig. Tricia in Morocco says, I struggled after COVID to lose weight and earlier this year paid privately for a tummy tuck. The surgery was extensive, but it gave me the confidence to get back in the gym and I'm much happier and healthier. It would have been a lot cheaper to have the fat jab, but I had serious doubts about the long-term side effects, says Tricia. Another person says, to be clear, there have been no safety trials performed on weight loss jabs, only trials on their effectiveness. Safety data will only emerge through the jab's use over time. Well, that's a very interesting point as well. Robert says, Peter, you don't need a weight loss injection, you just need Pizza Express to close. Robert, that is very cheeky, but I will happily read that out. And the 3 laughing emojis at the end. You've made me laugh this evening, and believe me, there aren't too many laughs in this show because there's some very, very serious topics. But Robert, I will take that on the chin, much like the pizza sauce that I will be having at Pizza Express before too long. Stay with us here on Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I want to talk to Sir Gerald Howarth now. He is a former Conservative Defence Minister. Sir Gerald, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Talk Drive this evening. How are you?
Well, good evening, Peter. I'm in good form, thank you. Glad not to be stuck in one of those traffic jams on the M25.
Well, exactly, or indeed on one of these controversial ships, because a sanctioned Russian tanker sailing through the English Channel a day after a similar vessel was seized by the US in European waters. Tavian was sanctioned by the United States in 2024 after allegedly being involved in the distribution of illicit Russian oil. It's now around 20 miles north of Guernsey, making its way towards Finland. What do you make of this, and what are the defence implications for, firstly, the UK, but more widely the West, the NATO countries, Sir Gerald?
Well, first, I think the Americans took the right decision. It is very interesting that President Trump, who has shown no desire to challenge Putin over his brutal invasion of Ukraine, has suddenly seized a Russian-flagged ship, although, of course, it was not previously Russian-flagged. It was flagged with some other country. It was just seems to have adopted Russia in order to try to protect itself. So if this foreshadows a decision by the United States, and particularly by President Trump, to take a much tougher line with President Putin, then that is good news. And if it is also backed up by the interception of other ships which are breaching sanctions, that is good for international order, because the ability of these rogues, and I include rogue states like Iran and Russia in that, if they are not challenged, they will just continue to defy the international order.
What do you mean by challenged? Because we hear rumours of troop build-ups of American troops, for example, in European bases. Maybe that's just routine, but maybe it's to do with Iran. We see what's happened in Venezuela. We see a potential peace deal when it comes to Ukraine. They say it's 95% there. What does it mean by what you say? What does that look like?
Well, we have been challenged first by Russia. We were challenged by Russia over the, first of all, the annexation of part of Georgia in 2008, then the annexation of part of Ukraine, the Crimean Peninsula, in 2014, and then the brutal, extraordinary invasion of the rest of Ukraine by Russia in 2022. And the fact that NATO, and particularly the United States, has not responded, has encouraged President Putin, who made it very clear in 2021, in a speech he made in July of that year, that his intention was, and I paraphrase, to rebuild the Soviet Union, because he and many Russian people feel a deep sense of resentment that Russia is no longer the great power that it used to be. And that is what he's been doing. So anything that reinforces NATO and reinforces the decision of those former Soviet territories like the Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and of course Finland and Sweden, who have been neutral since the Second World War, but decided that Russia is such a threat that they have joined NATO. This is really, really serious business. And so far, Putin has been able to act with impunity. So if this represents a change in attitude in the White House, then that is to be welcomed. But I'm afraid I'm not that hopeful, Peter.
What about the future of NATO? I know that's a huge question, but if you have, for example, a prime minister who says he supports NATO, a president who may want to take over Greenland, for example, may want to do things that are contrary to what NATO was set up to do, where does that leave us all? I know a lot of that's hypothetical, but what kind of strain do you think NATO is under currently?
Well, I think NATO is under strain from two things. One, the United States, and secondly, from the inability of the European members of NATO to step up to the plate in terms of investment in defence. For much of the last 80 years, the European continent has been the beneficiary of American taxpayer-funded defence, which has provided us with the umbrella against the Soviet Union in the first place, and now, of course, a resurgent Russia. And so it's extremely important that NATO, which let's not forget, a few years ago, people were saying, well, what on earth is NATO for?
Yes,
its purpose has gone out of existence. Well, today, everybody knows that NATO is absolutely vital. Yeah. And if I may say, Peter, it's extremely important that European nations do everything they possibly can to reinforce NATO. The idea that the European Union can create a European defense force is not only for the birds. I sat around that table listening to them, and they basically couldn't organize a proverbial in a brewery. It was deeply depressing. But it would also undermine NATO. And NATO has been the guarantor of the freedom and security of the people of these islands of ours and the wider European continent for decades. And it has also, of course, been the source of the liberation of those former states which were under the Russian heel post-1945. So really, really challenging times. But I'm not hopeful, I'm afraid, about America, because the Venezuelan exercise and the lifting of Maduro, fine, as my friend John Bolton, who was one of Donald Trump's national security advisors, said, well, you've got to follow it through, and there's no evidence of that. Yes. But secondly, it's really depressing to see Donald Trump talking in these transactional terms about taking the oil from Venezuela. It's not his oil, it's Venezuelan oil. And the idea that they're going to share it, the proceeds between Venezuela and the Venezuelan people and America, is pretty outrageous. But the most outrageous thing, of course, is the threat to Greenland. It is quite unacceptable that a member of NATO is talking about taking over another NATO member's territory. Absolutely extraordinary. There is no question that this would enhance American security. They can put forces on Greenland. They apparently had, I think I was talking to Theresa May last night, I think it's she who told me that they used to have about 14 bases in Greenland. They're down to one. They can do that, but it is outrageous of America to suggest that they will take over Greenland, just as it was outrageous of President Trump to say early on in his administration that America would take over Canada. I mean, for goodness sake, this is not the way to behave.
Okay. Sir Gerald, thank you. Sir Gerald Harth there, former Conservative Defence Minister. What do you think of what he said there? 0344 499 1000. We'll take a load of your calls next. I definitely want to get into this, not just the issue about Russia, not just the issue about delivery drivers and that astonishing call. It was sort of almost a second thought there a bit earlier on from our caller there, who was talking about voluntarily getting a parking fine because things are so expensive in that part of London. Really interesting to hear that. Fat jobs as well. I'm really interested to hear from anybody who's on them and thinks that actually could you be on them for life. If you want to give me a ring about that, by all means do so. We'll get you on the air. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, here at Talk, we are welcoming the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 than the chance to win some serious cash? Yes, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway, and it could be yours. It's 26k for 2026. Here is how to enter. For your chance to win, text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can give us a call on 0343 423 9761. Lines close at noon on Friday. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. You've got to be in the UK, you've got to be over 18. This is a network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 83338. Now, good luck. Right then, let's talk about the big issues that people want to chat about today, including fat jabs. Paul is in Lincolnshire and has some thoughts about this. Paul, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, thank you, Peter. Yes, this is part of, I think, some of the issues surrounding this, as you was talking to your woman from the Independent Pharmacy Association, is that things are obtained online. Yep. And I am vehemently against online medicine and telephone medicine. Whether you're at the GP or if you're accessing this, if you want to give someone the opportunity to ask questions and address any concerns, that's what I feel you have to do. And you know,
doesn't that happen on a phone as well, or a video call, perhaps?
I don't know. I tell you one story. I know someone, and I know them very well. They wanted the Manjaro. They sent photos of their daughter in. You know, it was.
Well, I know someone who's on Manjaro as well, and he told me that he arranged for his partner to take photos of him looking as fat as possible, and he stuck out his stomach and made it look as I mean, he needed to lose maybe a little bit of weight, but I wouldn't say this person is at all really properly overweight. And now they're saying you got to be in these fat jobs for life, Paul.
I know that does concern me. I know another friend of mine she's a young lady. She developed gallstones because of the Manjaro, and she was never counselled that this would happen. I think there's just too many. There's concerns in that respect. But I know something else I was going to say, Peter, and it's just gone out of my head, and I'm really sorry.
No, Paul. I tell you what, Paul. What we'll do is we'll keep you on hold for a minute or two. I'm going to talk to another Paul. If it comes back to you, we'll come back to you. If it doesn't, well, then we can go to another caller. But Paul in Lincolnshire, have a think. I promise I'll come back to you in a minute or two, but I'm going to talk to Paul in Brighton now on the minimum wage. Paul, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say, Paul in Brighton?
Yeah, hello, Peter.
Hiya.
I had to, I couldn't stand it any longer on Sunday morning when I saw Starmer on Laura Kunsberg, and he was asked about his achievements, and he rattled on about breakfast clubs and the minimum wage. And the minimum wage in particular you were talking about earlier. The way this government talk about the minimum wage is if it's they're paying the minimum wage.
It's as if, and they're actually just putting up, look, I'm sure people in the minimum wage want to earn more money. We all want to earn more money. But if you're a business and you're saying, yet again, the minimum wage is going up.
They can't get it around their heads that it's actually businesses that are paying the money. But what chance have we got when we've got a business secretary, Peter Cardwell? He's actually a local MP. The guy's never run a business in his life before he became an MP.
And nor has any other member of the cabinet, Paul.
Well, I know that as well. But in particular, a business secretary running, who's never run a business. I mean, I always thought the Conservatives at least had an idea when it comes to running the economy. Unfortunately, they let us down over the 14 years. But this lot just haven't got a clue. And you had a gentleman on a few moments ago who was talking about business rates and how it was affecting public houses. And it was mentioned almost flippantly that the London Hippodrome have got to pay an extra £1 million a year. But you analyse that, £1 million a year, £80,000 a month, £20,000 a week, £2,500 extra per day. Now I don't know the turnover of people that go into the London Hippodrome, but £2,500 a day. These things are not sustainable. In my own business, we pay corporation tax, and it was originally 19%.
Put it up to 20, putting it up to 25%, aren't they?
It went up to 25%. But people say, well, that's only a 6% increase. Okay, it's only a 6% increase, but previous years I was paying around about £30,000 a year in corporation tax. But because of that 6% increase on 19% equates to 30%.
Yeah.
So therefore, the £30,000 I'm paying in corporation tax is actually £40,000.
Yeah.
You know, people just don't. They bandy figures around and talk in millions and percentages, but they don't actually analyse what is actually being.
And they also don't know. And they also don't know. Crucially, which is the point you said at the very start of this, Paul. Crucially, they don't know what it's like to be you. They don't know what it's like to go through that process of running that business and knowing what it is to that another. You know, you just suddenly got to find another 10 grand.
They haven't got a clue, and that's sadly what. I mean, like him or loathe him, I don't particularly like the gentleman, but Mr. Trump at least has run a business. And he's been a successful businessman. So, there we go.
Okay, well, Paul, listen, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's Paul in Brighton. We did go back to Paul in Lincolnshire, who didn't remember his extra point. Maybe he will on another occasion, and we'll chat to him on some other occasion. James in Hampshire has been on Monjaro, apparently. James, tell us about this.
Yeah, so I've been on it just over a year. A man in the early 50s, had the 50s paunch, high blood pressure, heading on to be type 2 diabetic. And for me, it's been a life changer.
So what's happened? How have things changed for you, James?
Well, people think it's a cheat and that you just go on it and you carry on your lifestyle. These jabs, actually, you have to change your lifestyle. You can't eat as much. You can't go out and eat a massive burger meal after you've had a few pints. It just totally mentally changes you as well.
Do you think if you came off the jabs, do you think if you came off the jabs that your life would change, that you wouldn't go for that burger and chips?
I think mentally it changes your brain as well, your whole philosophy of how you feel.
But is that the jabs doing that? If you came off them, would you go back to your old bad habits, do you think? Or like these doctors are saying, are you going to have to be on them for life, James?
Well, I'm on the process now. I never got to the highest dose. I went to the second highest dose, which I went on for 1 month, and I soldiered through. But I did have a few side effects where that one made me feel sick. So I went back down to the 10 milligram, which I stayed on for a few months. I've now dropped down to the 7.5 milligram. I did mine through a company called Newman, obviously not mentioned in advertising, but the support they give you has been fantastic.
But let me just ask the question again, James, just before you go. If you came off them, do you think that if you came off Monjaro, do you still think that you would say no to that burger and chips, or do you think the weight would go back on?
At this point in time, I don't know 100%. I would tell myself I'm not going to have the burger and chips. I'm telling myself that I'm stop the snacking. But at this stage, I don't know.
Okay. James, really honest, and thank you.
I would hope I could be strong enough to say no.
James, thank you. That's James in Hampshire there. Very honest call there, certainly about his weight and his willpower as well. Don't know about you, I really fancy a burger and chips. Let's hear what Debs has to say on fat jabs.
Hi Peter, it's Debs in Lincolnshire. Happy New Year to you and all the crew at talkTV. With regards to the fat jabs, well, you've met me, I'm a stick. But I think, enjoy life, but be safe. And if you want to use the jabs, but they're safe, then so be it. But I'm not being funny, mate. I don't think you're fat. At the end of the day, you are beautiful inside and out. But yes, you've got to do what makes you happy, because otherwise that leads to depression, etc., etc. Keep up the good work, my love. Bye.
Thanks, Debs. I have met Debs. I do know Debs in Lincolnshire. I met her in London one time, and she is a lovely thin figure that I'm very, very envious of, it must be said. Met her husband as well. He's a bloody big bloke, so I'll not go too much further in that regard. Sharon has sent me a message on the Muslim Brotherhood.
Afternoon, Peter. this to do with the Muslim Brotherhood. We should be looking at our government. If they've known this for all this time, why isn't anything been done? Why hasn't the Brotherhood been put on a watch list? Our government and the other governments have done nothing about it. It's just crazy. We just seem to be floating nearer and nearer to being taken over by a power that we don't want in this country. But there we go. Anyway, good show. Sharon from Yorkshire.
Thank you, Sharon. Great points in that, and I do not know why the Muslim Brotherhood isn't prescribed. It is astonishing to me. Thank you to Clive in Solihull, who says, great show as ever regarding Trump and NATO. I totally agree with the stance. Why should 340 million Americans pay for the security of 740 million Europeans? Dave says, why did he use the phrase, he's not a perfect person, when referring to JFK Jr.? He's called out big pharma, politicians and medical professionals who push constant lies about COVID vac safety. Do you have a problem with that? No, I have a problem with him killing a bear, if you and which I think was an act of animal cruelty, and then just leaving it in the centre of Central Park. I don't think that was a very nice thing to do. I think it was a pretty cowardly thing to do. So Dave, if you Google RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and bear on Central Park, you'll get the full story on that, and I found it very, very disturbing that he did that. So Dave, that's my view on him. Lots more to talk about, including the sport. Sean will be with us in just a second. The head of sport at the Sun, Sean Costas, will be in the studio. Stay with us.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you very much to everybody who has got in touch on all the issues we're talking about today. Running a delivery company, running a pub, being an electrician, what it's like actually to deal with the hammering the government is often giving people. We've got now on our socials actually that call we had a little bit earlier on with Terry from Suffolk about the fact that he got a parking fine rather than pay the sky-high charges for parking in London, £22 an hour in that particular part of London. We'll return to all of that in just a few minutes after we talk about the sport.
Sports news from The Sun.
Sean Costas is with us, the head of sport at The Sun. Good evening to you. Tell us about football legend Terry Yorth sadly passing away. Came hours after his daughter Gabby Logan left Match of the Day midway through.
People who were watching Match of the Day last night would have seen when Gabby Logan left the programme to be replaced by Mark Chapman, halfway through, and it was fairly obvious that they said it was for family reasons, and it was fairly serious. And as we learnt this morning, her dad, Terry Yorath, passed away. Many people of a certain age will know Terry Yorath as a fairly major footballer in the game. He was part of the Leeds United side, which won league titles in the 70s, played in the European Cup final, lost that. He was also Welsh football manager, known as a tough tackling player, and a strong manager, well thought of in the game. Their lives, his and Gabby's, were blighted by tragedy because of the death of his son Daniel at the age of 15. He died of a heart condition, playing football in the back garden, and Terry actually said that he never properly recovered from that. He was also, sadly, there on the day of the Bradford fire disaster in 1985. He was player-coach of Bradford City at the time, and talked about that tragedy too. So, well known as a footballer, as a formidable footballer and manager, but also a life touched by tragedy as well, and very, very sad today. Lots of tributes being paid from around the game, and rightly so.
My dad is 76, so just a year older than Terry Yorath, and I remember the first time Gabby Yorath, as she then was, now Gabby Logan, came on the telly, and there was some criticism saying, she's this blonde presenter, she's a woman, what does she really know about football? There's certainly some sexism there. And my dad said, just you watch her. She is a great broadcaster. She's brought up steeped in a footballing family, knowing this stuff back to front. And of course now she's one of the most successful sport broadcasters in the country. And that came so much from what she heard and saw and experienced from her father.
She did a time as well in local radio. She worked on Metro Radio, which is where I'm from in Newcastle, and she did her stint on the local radio before moving into the the big leagues. The big leagues, if you like, and very accomplished presenter.
Absolutely. And speaking of Newcastle, no doubt you're a happy man with win at home against Leeds.
It was great fun watching that game last night. Well, it wasn't all the time because Leeds led 3 times, but we came back to win 4-3. And the thing about winning 4-3 is a scoreline synonymous with Newcastle, but we usually lose those games. This time we won it, and it was something of a tribute to Kevin Keegan, who of course was involved in those 4-3 games with Liverpool and Newcastle, because we learnt yesterday that he had been diagnosed with cancer, and the whole of the crowd was singing his name, and it was to see Newcastle win as well. I hope would have cheered him a little bit in what is a very difficult time for him. So yes, that was I enjoyed that finish. Man United, it didn't get any much better last night. Got a 2-2 draw. There was a little bit of signs of life with United because Sesko scored twice. We've been waiting for him to explode on the scene. He did that. Chelsea, who've had their woes, lost. But the new man starts this weekend. They're playing in the FA Cup this weekend. Liam Rosenior takes over. He was just watching last night. Man City, though, messed up again last night. Dropped points, home draw with Brighton to put themselves 5 points behind Arsenal. But Arsenal have a game in hand. And tonight, it's Arsenal versus Liverpool. Now, if Arsenal win that game tonight against a Liverpool side, which, let's be honest, has been struggling, and Arne Slot, the manager, is under a bit of pressure. If Arsenal win that, they'd be 8 points clear of their nearest rivals, of City and Aston Villa, and that is a significant gap at this stage of the season. That would make you start to believe that Arsenal, maybe they really will win the title this season, because it's been a long wait for them.
A bit of hope is a dangerous thing, isn't it?
It is, but you really do have a feeling. Even yourself, Peter, must have noticed that this feels like there's no slip-ups from Arsenal this season. They've definitely got a rhythm going about them. Players like Declan Rice, England star, are really leading from the front, carrying them forward. Everything is working. Gyökeres, their striker, could do with scoring a few more goals. That apart, they look at a very, very well-oiled machine, and there doesn't seem to be a side that's going to really threaten them now.
Sean, thank you for all of that. Sean Custis there, the head of sport at the Sun, bringing us right up to date there. And we'll continue to talk about this Metropolitan Police expose, panorama, exposing the misogyny and racism a few weeks ago. Of course, now we know that many of those recruits into the Metropolitan Police were brought in without proper checks. Let's just remind ourselves of that documentary.
An independent review concluded the Met was institutionally homophobic, misogynistic and racist. Panorama went undercover to find out if it had changed after whistleblowers provided evidence about Charing Cross.
Ring the buzzer if you need anything else, yeah?
Our reporter Rory Bibb worked for 7 months at Charing Cross in a civilian role as a designated detention officer. He filmed evidence of racist attitudes and what appeared to be the mistreatment of people who'd been arrested.
Well, that is a really, really interesting topic. We're going to continue talking about that. We're also going to continue taking your calls, text, tweets and voice notes, and indeed your tweets as well. As I say, Ray, Peter, we went to hear Tony Blair speak at a Police Federation conference in London when he was before he was elected Prime Minister. My friend, who was a tremendous judge of character, said after the speech, "This man is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He will ruin our country." James Cox says, "Peter, I'm not even a van driver. I'm a retired driver, but twice each week I drive from Hereford to South London to care for my 96-year-old father. It's 320 miles there and back and currently costs around £55 to £60 each time, as if the cost of everything else going up wasn't enough." Angela says, "Fuel duty going up, as your caller Matthew earlier on said, it will increase the cost of living. If advisors in 10 Downing Street can't understand this, then they should not be in the job, and I have to ask, are they thick? Because this is a simple deduction." Angela, it's not about being thick, it's about being connected to real people. And when I was a special advisor back in the day, the most instructive time of my week was when I was talking to people who had absolutely nothing to do with politics. Sometimes people who didn't vote. When I worked for the Northern Ireland office, for example, I spent a lot of time at my parents' church talking to people and saying, are these policies that we're going to implement, are they, what do you think, what are your views? And talking to ordinary people who don't always think about politics all the time. And why would you? Because so many other people have so many other things in their lives. But just this detachment I find from this government and other governments as well, but particularly this one, the gulf between Keir Starmer's life and the life of most of our viewers and listeners. It is a huge and yawning gulf. I want to talk to Ashley about parking because we had this astonishing clip earlier on from Terry in Suffolk where he said that it's cheaper to get a parking fine than to park in some parts of London. Ashley is in London. Ashley, what did you think of that?
Oh, I totally agree. I have to say, I'm a project manager. I drive around town all the time, have to go to multiple different places, and we've kind of taken the view that the amount of time at a property, the price of the ticket compared to the price of the parking. I mean, I stop and it can cost me £3, £4, £5 at a time, maybe more, and you're doing 10, 15 stops. Sometimes you're somewhere there for quite a period of time. Some areas, if you've got a diesel as well, they're charging you extra, and you could be paying, for the hour, you could be paying £10, £12 in some of the local boroughs, and sometimes even more. And it really is the case that you put your car out there and you just you just pin your hopes on someone not coming along, and it's, for me, I think it's averaged about one parking ticket a month.
So hold on a second. So Ashley, let me get this right. So you're deliberately not paying each time because it's so expensive. You're doing all these different stops in your role as a project manager, and then you're saying, we'll just take a risk. We'll sort of play Russian roulette with this when it comes to parking fines. You've got one a month, and that 65 quid or whatever is a lot less than you would have been paying otherwise. So it's a risk, but it pays off because the prices are so high.
Well, it does, because you look at it, it just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. If they made it more reasonable, more fair in cost. I mean, over the last couple of years, I've seen the pricing going up and up and up and up. And so many people are doing this, and I accept that. Look, I do it. I ticket call. I pay the ticket. Fair enough. Fair dues. But it's not just about things like that. It's also for construction companies. I'm project manager, but for construction companies themselves, like small scale people, it's the boroughs now are homing in on licenses for skips, right? Then they're charging you for suspending parking bays. Then they want you to suspend bays for delivery of your materials, but you can't just do it for like a couple of hours. You've got to do it for a whole day, and it could cost you £800 or £900 on a small job, maybe a little extension, right? And you've got to do that a couple of times. And it's all these little bits and pieces that are becoming kind of unbearable in the business. And then that's going to the client. The clients haven't been charged. They want to know why they're paying so much money.
Of course, yeah.
And it's the parking is possibly just one part of it. But this isn't new. I mean, this is something that I think a lot of people have been kind of taking a view on. If the councils obviously get more aggressive in regards to it increases in the number of times you've got, then it's obviously you're going to look and say, okay, fair enough. We'll have to work it out. You know, it's not even as if I can just, for instance, jump on the train all the time and just go places, because where I have to go is on different lines. You know, whereas it might take me, you know, maybe 6 or 7 hours to do that route in a car in total. To get on the train, I've got to go back out of town, into town, onto another line, onto another.
But what you're describing there, Ashley, is actually just good business sense. You're not doing anything illegal. You're simply saying, well, we're going to take a bit of a risk here if the traffic warden comes along. But this is the problem with so many rules in our society. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong at all, Ashley. I'd probably do exactly the same thing in your position. But if it's not going to be enforced, well, then you can take a risk. And especially these companies that are jacking up these prices to such a huge degree. I mean, that's a major part of your expenditure, just something as straightforward as parking.
Well, I mean, look, we're stuck with... I mean, I'm more concerned about getting caught doing 22 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone these days going around town than you are with getting a parking ticket.
Yes,
even, right?
yes.
It's kind of, you know, trying to do 20 miles an hour. I know some parts of town it's really busy and you can't get over 5 or 6 miles an hour, but in real terms...
no, if you've got, I know exactly what you mean. If you've got a free run, if you've got a clear road, doing 20 miles an hour is actually quite difficult.
Oh, it's painful, isn't it? I mean, it's you sit, you know, you are bound to pick up you know, points at some point on your license and that, and obviously then that's your livelihood, which is more important. So I look at it with the parking. While it's not something that's illegal, it's just a fine. Fair enough. I think it's a kind of a fairly sensible thing to do. You know,
and can I just get it clear? Just I've got to go to the news, but just to clear the parking fine, the 65 is after the 50% reduction, so you pay it within the 90 days.
Yeah, I mean, you pay it. I literally, if I was to get one today, when I come home, so I don't forget, I'll just go online and pay it.
Yeah, and that would be 65 quid, would it?
It depends on the borough.
Yeah, sure.
It's normally 50% of whatever.
Yeah.
Some boroughs are £110, so it's £55.
Okay. Ashley, got to go to the news, but listen, thanks for that real insight there. Thank you, and thanks to Phil in Portsmouth for bringing up that point. But yes, it does vary. But yeah, 65 quid was certainly what Terry was talking about a little bit earlier on. We're going to talk fat jabs after the news. Louise has been waiting patiently. I promise you, she is the first call I'm going to take after the news. We're also going to talk about rapists and violent thugs hired by the Met as full checks were axed in a rush to recruit officers. Astonishing and shameful. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell, and thank you for your company. There's loads to talk about, whether it's fat jabs, whether it's what would happen if the Argentines invaded the Falklands again. Yes, someone's contacted me about that. Whether it's the weather, whether it's rapists in the Metropolitan Police, or whatever you want to talk about, let me know. And I promise I will go to Louise in Kent in just a second. She's been patiently waiting, and we phoned her back twice. I am a bad man. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text us 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note less than a minute, please, on the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message on the main number, or ring me on the main number for a conversation just like the one I'm about to have with Louise. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. So much to discuss between now and 7 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk Drive. Louise, I am so sorry we have kept you waiting for ages. Louise in Kent wants to talk to me about fat jobs. What would you like to say, Louise? Good evening to you.
Yes, good evening. I was speaking to you before, Peter, no problem. The thought occurs to me about the fat jabs. How long are we going to be able to call them fat jabs? I'll tell you what, before somebody jumps on us and says we're being disrespectful.
Well, good point.
Overweight people. But what I was thinking, to be honest, there's nothing like the good old hard work that you need to do this.
But the point is, people don't want to do that, do they, Louise? They want to jab themselves and get thin.
Everything that gets it right instantly without them having. And I know a couple of people. One who's controlling her diabetes with it. She's not interested really in her food. She's not, because when she first was diagnosed, she lost a lot of weight through just being on the diet.
Yes.
Then she put it all back on again.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's back on the jabs, and she said, "Well, I need this because I live alone." I thought, well, yeah, so do I, and I know the problems. So there was that, and I've watched her, and she sits all day long in her chair, and she's lost about £1 to £2 a week, because clearly she's not doing anything else either.
Yes.
I've got another friend who's on it, who buys it. I've only ever seen her ever eat carbohydrate with it, whether it's cakes or, the Christmas meal, potatoes and a couple of the sausages. That was it. Having swallowed a whole bowl of soup and 3 slices of bread.
Yeah.
No vegetables, nothing.
Yeah.
Now,
that's not healthy. That's not a balanced diet, is it?
But see, they don't get any instruction with it, so they're not learning anything. This is why they won't.
But this is the thing, and this is a really interesting point, Louise, because the guest earlier on was saying it's got to be part of a healthy lifestyle. As someone said, if someone had a healthy lifestyle, they wouldn't need to take these in the first place. But the point is that unless you change your behaviour, you're going to be on them for life, aren't you? Because that's the substitute for a bit of hard graft to get the weight off.
Yeah, and the crazy thing as well is if this study says they all put it back on, probably plus more. Now, the one thing they do know as well, unless you do all the right things as well, you actually lose a lot of muscle on top of the fat when you take the jabs. They know that now. So if you're going to put all this weight on and you've done nothing in the meantime, you're actually going to put on pure fat, not the muscle back.
Yeah.
So your health
and you're absolutely right, because well, you're absolutely right, Louise, and like neither of us is a qualified doctor as far as I know.
No, but I was a physio.
Okay, so you know this stuff, and it does take a lot of the muscle mass as well, especially Ozempic takes the muscle mass as well. That's why Simon Cowell's face collapsed.
Yeah, but the problem is, if they don't do the right things with it, when they put all this weight back on, they won't have the muscle back. It'll all be the weight again. And also, I mean, with all these things, she said, "Oh well, yeah, there's no long-term studies done." This is the problem, because I've told you before, I came off 40 years of mental health drugs. The problem with all of those is most of them are only tested for about 8 weeks. We don't know the long-term effect.
Yeah. And we won't know the long-term.
5 years to come off.
And Louise, we won't know the long-term effects of these things until the long term. Louise, thank you for that. Thanks for your patience as well. Lewis is in Essex and has some thoughts on fat jabs as well. Go ahead, Lewis.
Yeah, so I started taking Manjaro after putting on a little bit of weight. I was on it for about 4 months, started going through the different cycles and the different amounts that you take. And within 4 months, I developed gallstones. I've had my gallbladder out since.
Oh, my goodness, right.
Whilst I'm only 34. So
that's grim, and that is an incredibly painful thing, isn't it? Gallstones are really painful.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. And also, whilst I was in hospital having the gallstones or gallbladder removed, you get talking to the people sitting next to you, and 3 of the people sitting next to me were in there for exactly the same thing.
Wow. And presumably you came off Mounjaro.
No, and the issue was that, and speaking to a doctor afterwards, because I wasn't at the weight that would allow me to get them on the NHS. So you go through, the online, the online people, and you don't. What the doctor explained to me afterwards is that it obviously tells you what the gallbladder does and how it works. And it all makes perfect sense as to why, when you drop such an amount of weight drastically in such a short space of time, why you end up, while people will end up developing gallstones. And
Lewis,
I think it's pancreatitis as well.
Lots of worrying elements to this. Lewis, I've got to go to another guest, but I just want to ask you before you go, what would you say to other people who are thinking about going on these fat jabs, especially now doctors are saying you may have to stay on them for life to keep the weight off if you don't have the same side effects, very bad side effects that you had?
Anyone who says to me that they want to try it, I try to push them off of it immediately. Mm-hmm. And it's not only that. I know someone who started taking it and wasn't aware of the side effects of taking it, so ended up in A&E with all the side effects that you get with it. And within that short space of time, the actual triage doctor actually turned around to them and said, I've been on shift now for 2 hours. You're the 3rd person to come in who have just started the jabs and who are getting all these side effects.
Lewis, that's fascinating. Thank you for bringing that to us. That's Lewis in Essex there. And I do think when there's a miracle cure for anything, you do need to think and say, hold on a second, is this for me? Is this the right thing? And consult. Before I went on any of that sort of stuff, I would want to sit face to face with a doctor, a human being, not a phone call, not something online, not a video call, with a doctor face to face who can weigh me, who can look at me, who can see my frame and say, should I go on these or should I not? And what are the side effects of it? That's what I would want to do. Right then, I want to talk now about an absolute scandal. The rapists and violent thugs hired by the Metropolitan Police as full checks were axed in a rush to recruit officers. Kevin Hurley is with me now. He's a former Metropolitan Police Superintendent. Kevin, thanks for your time this evening. When you see people, and particularly police forces, rushing towards money for recruitment, they had to do this quickly and the checks weren't done. It's a tremendous dereliction of duty. What should happen now?
Well, let me say first off, coming as I do from a family of 9 Metropolitan Police officers, mum, dad, uncle, 2 brothers, 2 nephews and son, members of the Met, and being immensely proud of serving for 30 years there, I'm absolutely appalled at what's happened. But this is really a product of what's been going on in the UK for probably the last 15 to 20 years. One of the major players was austerity, when the police were cut by Theresa May and David Cameron by over 20,000 police officers and 20,000 civilians. And of course, Boris came in and said, recruit 20,000 immediately and meet this target, or you'll be financially penalised if you don't. As a net result, the chief officers did anything they could to usher people through the door who, as we've seen, haven't been checked out correctly. And the second point is, 15, 20 years ago, the type of people who started to move into the most senior positions in the police changed from what we might call people who were focused on organising crime and people more concerned about the sound bites of reassurance and community and engagement, and lost the real true purpose of the police, which is to protect the people against violent bullies, dishonest people and thugs. So this all leads me up to the police chiefs rolled over without correct diligence to do everything they could to say, yes, Prime Minister, look at us, we've got all the recruits you wanted. Undoubtedly, there were people along the way in the organisation who were advising them, this is dangerous, we shouldn't be doing it, we need to be more careful. But they chose, for reasons of seeking their Kings and Queens police medals, their OBEs, their knighthoods, their future places in the House of Lords, to be compliant and subservient to government. Any police chief worth their salt would have said, this is very nice that they're going to tell us to recruit these extra people, but we cannot meet them with the correct standards of selection just to meet Boris Johnson's little soundbite. But they did, and so the net result of it is we've had some of these people come into the police who quite clearly are wrong-uns. So let me give you an example of what once happened. When you applied to join the police, part of the selection process was the local inspector would go round to your family home and check not only yourself out, but your family and your neighbours to decide, are you a good male or female recruit?
Which strikes me as a very sensible thing to do.
Of course, because if your next door neighbour is going to say, well, he was a right little yob and a right little young'un, that is going to give you a bit of a starting point. But of course, in order to save money and in the interests of diversity, they took away these basic ideas. Then the next thing that the police did that they've now stopped is when you applied to join the police, you normally had to go for an interview with an experienced old inspector and experienced superintendent together, or perhaps a sergeant, who would grill you on the spot for an hour about your motivation, what made you tick, and so on. And they basically formed a view, did this person deal with difficult confrontation?
Yep.
And actually, are they shifty? Are they a wrong-un? Well, all of that's gone. And of course, in the midst of this recruitment drive, you had COVID. So the net result was people were recruited into the police service without even having face-to-face interviews with anyone who worked with the police, or if at best they might have had a virtual one, over the computer. You then follow that up with the drive to change the way police are trained and recruited, and the closure of all the regional police training schools up and down the country, such as Hendon, Ashford, Dunbran, Dishford. These were places where all the forces combined to send their recruits to a set syllabus where you knew that someone who came out at the very least could deal with the basics of street disorder of a road accident. But what they also acted as was as a, if you like, extended suitability period of 16 weeks, where class instructors would look at them, how they were acting, and deciding, is he good for it? Is he all right? Or in fact, is he?
And Kevin, having gone through all that, and having had those 9 people in your family go through that or a version of that, and then seeing that the Met Police that you and your family have served with such great bravery, distinction, commitment, diligence over decades and decades and decades when you put it all together, and then you see that someone who is a child rapist has been made a Metropolitan Police officer. What does that say to you?
Well, it says to me how far it's gone. And, I was previously an elected police and crime commissioner in Surrey, and one of the things that concerned me back in 2012 was the way in which vetting procedures had been allowed to drop off. Because again, it all comes back to austerity. Everyone believes the answer to policing is bobbies on the beat. So everything goes out the window just to put uniforms on the street. It doesn't really seem to matter to anyone what's their quality of ability to deliver, what's their leadership, what's their motivation, what is the supervision. So part of that was, let's cut the staff that we employed in vetting and selection procedures so we could keep the numbers of constables up. And they've completely lost the whole ethos and the whole image. I mean, the kind of way, I'm looking at these pictures now. You see these police officers you're just showing now?
Yeah.
The police have thrown away their brand image. Oh, this is one where they haven't done. Everyone you've shown me so far is they're walking about in their flat caps.
Yeah.
They don't realise the brand image of a British police officer is what you've got there as a constable's helmet. Because it's what people expect. And the point I'm making is the senior leadership of the police have lost sight of their fundamental mission. Keep people safe, deal with violent bullies, dishonest people and thugs. And they now move down these routes of sound bites, yes minister, no minister, we'll meet your 20,000 target minister, without a care of what that actually means to you, me, and the public in terms of we end up with these monsters like Carrick, the mass rapist.
Yes.
Like Cousins, the rapist murderer. Cousins failed his vetting. Do you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Vetted by Thames Valley Police when he was a civil nuclear constabulary constable. They recommended he should not be recruited. The civil nuclear constabulary, because they needed the staff, took him in.
Yes.
And then when the Met wanted more firearms officers, because there was a drive, understandably, the civil nuclear constabulary, of course, all armed guarding power stations. So they thought, we'll take Cousins straight in. He must have been vetted properly, but he wasn't. And so you suddenly had Cousins, who was a massive debtor, never mind a right wrong'un.
Kevin, thank you for all of that. Kevin Hurley there, former Metropolitan Police Superintendent. It does make you question what on earth they're doing and whether anybody is really in control. We'll go live to America in a few minutes' time because J.D. Vance and the Vice President is giving a press conference. Also, Caroline Leavitt, who is the White House Press Secretary, will be speaking. We'll try and bring that to you after this US shooting. And also what on earth they're going to do about Greenland. We'll bring some of that to you. We'll also talk about the weather and what's in the sun. Lots of people want to talk about Russia, fat jabs, pubs, whatever you want to talk about. Let's get your voice on the air between now and 7 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Here at Talk, we're welcoming the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 than with the chance to win some serious cash? Yes, 26 grand. It's our biggest new year cash giveaway, and it could be yours. It's 26k for 2026. Here is how to enter. For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at midday on Friday. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. You've got to be in the UK, you've got to be over 18. This is a network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Good luck. We're keeping an eye on the White House and Caroline Leavitt, who is the press secretary there, as well as JD Vance, the vice president, may well be telling us more on Russia. We know that President Trump and Prime Minister Starmer had a talk about that. Greenland is a big issue in which they disagree. And of course, we've seen these shadow boats, these ships that have been intercepted as well. We'll keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, let's keep an eye on what's happening here in the UK. As you may have noticed, it's a bit cold, and the Met Office has upgraded the wind warning to red, danger to life alert, as Storm Goretti is hitting. Steph Goulter is a meteorologist and with me now. Steph, where are we? Where's it going?
So the storm, the eye of the storm, the centre of low pressure, is running along the south coast, but it's throwing plenty of rain across many parts of England and Wales, and actually the southeast of Ireland as well. So we're seeing that was rain as it first hit, but of course then it slammed into the cold air that's been over us since the start of the year. So now a lot of that is turning to snow. So we're seeing the snow over parts of Wales, and we're also seeing that snow push further northwards as well. So some rain and sleety, snowy stuff also as far north as Sheffield at the moment. Here in Winchester, it's actually just stopped raining because the rain is kind of in an arc, and we've just passed the main area of rain's just past us. So we've got to wait for the back end now as we head through into Friday.
Where is Storm Goretti going to hit the worst, do you think?
So the worst of the winds, that will be in the southwest. That's where there's the risk of seeing 100-mile-an-hour winds, and they're exceptionally strong.
And that's properly get inside somewhere, get shelter. That is proper red warning, risk to life, isn't it?
Proper strong wind. Don't go out in it. If you can at all avoid it, just don't go out. Then we've got an amber warning for heavy snow. That's for many places. We're looking 10 to 15 centimetres of snow, but in a few areas could be as much as 20 to 30 centimetres. So for parts of England and Wales where this warning is, I mean, we're not talking the north of Scotland, are we? We're not used to it here, not all in one go, just in a few hours. So by the time we get to tomorrow morning, some people are going to be waking up to, a really wintry start that we're not used to. So again, amber warnings, don't travel unless you really have to.
Steph, thank you for that update. That's Steph Goulter there, who's a meteorologist. Appreciate you joining us on Talk Drive this evening. Lots of people in touch about all the issues we're talking about this evening, including pubs as well. One person says, I fully endorse the help for pubs, but we are a small family-run business manufacturing and selling our own jewellery. The rates hike will kill us. 2 apprentices we were going to take on, we can no longer consider taking them on. This would be a training and career for them. We're in the Isle of Wight and our business is seasonal. There won't be, it appears, any help for small businesses. And this is the thing, it's these small businesses, it's those apprentices that we're going to take on. It's the hairdresser I spoke to a few months ago. He said, look, we employ 15 people over 2 salons. We usually take on an apprentice. We usually bring them on. Someone leaves, or 2 people go part-time, or someone has a baby and there's a maternity leave, or whatever, and we bring those people on. It's this little, these small decisions, the big decision for the business themselves, but small numbers, 1 or 2 people who aren't being brought in. And Rachel Reeves, I don't think, gets that in regard to that jewellery business, the salons I'm talking about, or the pubs as well, which is what Graham in Berkshire wants to talk about. Graham, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you, Peter. Some pubs are being hit by double council tax on rooms they've got above the pub that aren't being occupied. But in a lot of cases, these rooms only have access through the pub, so you can't rent it out to anybody other than the owner of the pub or the manager, and that's going to quadruple.
That's interesting. I didn't know that, and that will affect an awful lot of pubs, won't it? And especially when they just have maybe 1 or 2 rooms that they have. There are a lot of pubs where you can overnight in good rural areas and stay there and make a weekend of it.
Well, when you think about a pub that has a flat above it, and it's a 1500s pub. There's a lovely one in Hurst, and he's got this problem. He can't use that flat. His family's grown too big to be there.
Yeah. Graham, I'm just
rent it out.
Unfortunately, I've got to stop you there because Caroline Levitt is talking now at the White House. Let's go live to the White House for this press briefing from Caroline Levitt.
Uphold law and order in the United States of America. The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister, left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement are under organized attack. Right now, immigration and customs enforcement officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals in the Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed. As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances that make it nearly impossible for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs. Democrats are calling to defund federal law enforcement agencies who are protecting public safety. And Democrats are calling to abolish ICE and defund the police. That will never be allowed to happen under this president and vice president. The Trump administration will redouble our efforts to get the worst of the worst, criminal illegal alien killers, rapists, and pedophiles off of American streets. The Department of Homeland Security will continue to operate on the ground in Minnesota, not only to remove criminal illegal aliens, but also to continue conducting door-to-door investigations of the rampant fraud that has taken place in the state under the failed and corrupt leadership of Democrat Governor Tim Walz. Taxpayers have been ripped off to the tune of billions of dollars in this one state alone, and that is going to end, and people are going to be held accountable. The Trump administration has activated thousands of federal agents, doubled the number of U.S. attorneys in the DOJ office in Minneapolis, and surged resources to hold fraudsters accountable and demand justice for law-abiding American taxpayers and citizens across our country. And that's what brings the Vice President out here with me today to discuss all the Trump administration is doing and to make an additional important announcement on this front. So please, Mr. Vice President, will be joining us now. J.D.
Vance coming now. This is after mass protests broke out across America after the shooting of mum of 3 Renee Good by ICE officers. J.D. Vance.
And I want to echo some of what Carolyn said about what we're doing to combat the rampant fraud that exists in our immigration system, thanks to failed politicians and thanks to people who allowed the American taxpayer to be taken advantage of for far too long. I think it's important to understand why this matters to the American people. I am a father of 3 young kids, a lot of people in my generation. What is that going on there? Is that normal? Okay. CNN installed this broken camera just to throw me off my game, but it's not going to work. So here's the simple fact here. If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number 2, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud.
J.D. Vance there, the Vice President of the United States, talking about what the administration is doing, particularly after mass protests have broken out across America after the shooting of a mother of three, Renee Good, by ICE officers. The Department of Homeland Security claimed the shooting was an act of self-defense. The city's Democrat mayor, Jacob Frey, has blasted the characterization of the shooting and told them to get the F out of Minneapolis. We'll talk about that and many other stories, and if there are more significant lines coming out of the White House from J.D. Vance and Caroline Levitt, we will of course bring that to you here on Talk Drive, but we're going to find out what's in the Sun. They will be covering this story. Alex West, the Associate News Editor, is with us very, very soon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much to everybody who's been in touch, including Jason in the Lake District, who said, remember Starmer said just before the election they were the best prepared party for government in history and that every single department was fully costed. If the Tories were handling the country in exactly the same way as Labour are currently, I would love to know what Starmer would be saying at PMQs as opposition leader. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch about fat jabs as well. Mike in Whitney says, no doubt thousands of people paying for the fat jab will be overweight, out of work and on benefits, using the jab to deal with the weight they've put on watching TV and eating takeaways that we taxpayers pay for. We'll return to that between now and 7 o'clock. But I just want to talk to Alex West now, who's the Associate News Editor of The Sun. Hi, Alex. How are you doing?
Hello. Hi, yeah, good evening.
We were hearing there from Caroline Levitt and indeed J.D. Vance a little bit about those mass protests breaking out across America after the shooting of Renee Good. Just talk us through this from The Sun's coverage.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, we are on our way out to Minneapolis at the moment. Our US Senator Scarlett Howes is going there to sort of gauge reaction from people. Obviously, this is an issue that will split America. You know, this awful death of this woman at the hands of an ICE agent, and the questions really will be now as to what exactly happened. The FBI have opened an investigation into it. They've taken the investigation from the local police there, and they will be looking what happened. Obviously, it's happened just a mile from where George Floyd was killed. We all know what happened with the ramifications of that that spread across the country, across the world. At the moment, there's protests in Minnesota and also in New York, but it could potentially spread further.
Some of the comments as well, astonishing. The Democrat Mayor Jacob Frey saying that ICE's characterization of the shooting is wrong and told them to get the F out of Minneapolis. They're already trying to spin this as an act of self-defense. Having seen the video myself, I want to tell everybody directly that is, and then he uses a word that I'm not going to use, at 24 minutes to 7, but it begins with the four letters that spell bull. Very, very interesting that this is really such an incredibly emotive issue, quite understandably.
Yeah. Yeah, a very, very emotive issue, and temperatures are raising on both sides, and it's going to be interesting to find out exactly what the arguments are put forward for what this ICE officer did and the action he took. I mean, he says that he thought he was in danger. It transpires that I was reading on the New York Post today that 3 months ago he was involved in another incident, this officer, where he was dragged by a car as well. So, as I say, we're looking at both sides. Tempers running really high.
I just want to dip in briefly to what the Vice President is saying. Do we still have that? This is J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States. I think he's talking about it right now. Let's see if he is.
Has been a joke. The idea that he's some sort of freedom fighter, he's not. He's a guy who has enabled fraud and maybe, in fact, has participated in fraud. That's what this new Assistant Attorney General position is going to
No, he's talking about something else there, but certainly he has said that we stand with our law enforcement officers. He says the President and I stand with ICE, so we'll continue to monitor all of that. Here in the UK, the big story for Brits, of course, is going to be Storm Goretti. I don't know if you noticed, Alex, but it's quite cold.
Yes, absolutely indeed, and that's rolling in as we speak. It's hitting. It's a rare red weather warning. We hear a lot about amber ones, but it's just been recorded now that the wind speed of 93 miles an hour in the Scilly Isles as it comes barreling into the country. The government sent out one of those text alert things to tell people what to do in case of damage and flying debris and that kind of thing. So it's battened down the hatches, certainly across the southwest and west of the country as it moves across the country overnight. As you say, the sort of cold air temperatures along with the lashing rain, we could get sleet, snow, high winds. It could be really very damaging. I think we're going to have, wake up tomorrow morning with, some quite desperate scenes in some parts of the country. Potential that power could go down and, shortages. I mean, it's going to be, we just have to sort of brace for it, really, and see what happens over the next sort of 12 hours or so.
And the Sun and Talk will keep you updated on all of that. Let's talk about David Coote now, the disgraced paedophile Premiership referee. More detail coming out about this.
Well, so David Coote obviously was successful on the surface, successful Premiership referee who'd been on TV and was quite well known to all extents and purposes. A sort of model professional referee, if you like, and then first came a video that was leaked online where he was being very disparaging about Jurgen Klopp, and then following that interview, the Sun actually got a video of him taking cocaine in drug parties between big Premiership matches. As a result of that, police actually went round and investigated him, and as a result they found videos of him, belonging to him, involving a 15-year-old boy in school uniform, for which he was arrested and pleaded guilty to having this footage, and he was today sped jail. As the judge sort of described the spectacular fall from grace that he had, which had been noted in our newspaper, effectively. He will walk free from, not face jail today. But as the judge pointed out, this a massive fall from grace from being a Premiership football referee to this utter disgrace, really. And we've got all of that in the paper, and we can tell the full story of how it all unfolded.
Tell us just before you go about David Bowie, his former childhood home, an immersive experience.
Yes, so lovely. David Bowie's former home in Bromley in southeast London is going to be converted into an exhibition, effectively. I mean, he talked about his time. He was very much a Londoner. He started off very humble beginnings in this terrace down in in Bromley, and talked how he spent a lot of time in his bedroom with his music and his books and this sort of thing, and how he would sort of wander between there and go out into the streets of London, and that and the only strange bit was going through this sort of foreign land of his own sitting room. But now some curators have got the house and reverting it to a sort of 70s feel and decor from when he was there, and you'll be able to take part in seeing what his life was like then, and obviously it will have connections to all his music and what he went on to do, all the fabulous things he later went on to do.
Back in the day when I was a reporter at UTV in Belfast, I remember doing the story of George Best's house, and they had brought it back to its former glory and done all the different, the carpets and and you could stay there. You could actually stay overnight, which was kind of an interesting thing as well. And I remember interviewing this guy who was there as this sort of obsessed kind of George Best fan. He said he found the spirit of George, which was really interesting as well. So that immersive experience.
Well, I think you'll
find
a lot of Bowies and Starmen and that sort of thing rocking up there to dressed up to
certainly we can all be heroes just for one day. Alex West, a hero every day, of course, associate news editor of The Sun, and all the stories he's talking about are in the paper tomorrow and indeed online at thesun.co.uk. Lots to discuss. People who want to get on fat jabs, the weather, lots of people talking about government U-turns as well. Indeed, how we would respond. Howard says, I wonder how we would respond should Argentina decide to invade the Falklands again. That's a very good point, especially with all the big defence issues going on. Loads to discuss in the next and indeed final part of the programme before Kevin O'Sullivan comes up at 7 o'clock. So stay with us here on Talk Drive.
Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Becky's been in touch about the fat jab. She says, evening Peter, regarding the fat jab, for some people it does work. It would not have worked for me, and I had to have a gastric sleeve due to putting an extreme amount of weight on from the menopause and overheating and the stress of life. I've lost 10 stone so far. George says you have to look at the recruitment policy of the Met. Hire one, get one free is never going to work. A lot of my family have been in the police force past and present. My brother is an ex-policeman. Always said that you shouldn't be in the police force if you haven't lived a life before, says George. A really interesting call earlier on. I want to replay this for people who might have missed it. Terry in Suffolk got in touch and told me about being an electrician, going around London. I'm sure this is the case in many other cities too, expensive places to park. What he does is he decides not to pay the parking, but to risk a fine and indeed actually almost try and get a fine, because 65 quid fine in that area that he was talking about, Islington, would actually be cheaper than paying £22 an hour to park his van. This is what he told me earlier on Talk Drive.
You go to Islington, and you park in Islington, it's £28, nearly £30 it must be now for 2 hours.
That's crazy. For 2 hours, nearly 15 quid an hour.
2 hours.
Park a car.
And then if I go just across the road, I think it's to Camden, just across the road to Camden Borough, it drops down by about £7-8 for the 2 hours.
Mad. Tony,
and the traffic warden, I said to her, I've got a parking ticket. What people are doing in London now is cheaper to get a parking ticket than to pay the parking.
Hold on. So there are people who are actually, instead of paying the parking, they're just getting the ticket and paying the ticket.
You'll get a parking ticket. Now, I had a traffic warden come up to my van early in the morning when I was doing parking in this place near Islington Borough. I said, is there not a parking place around here that I'm parking my van and it's cheaper? She said, are you going to be here all day? I said, yes. She said, it'd be cheaper to get a parking ticket. Now, that was coming from the parking warden. I thought that was ridiculous. So you pull up in the morning, I'll just leave my van, walk away, get them a parking ticket, and it was cheaper to get a parking ticket than pay the parking all day.
That's mad. How much was the parking ticket?
I think it's about 65 quid it was. So it would have cost me £22, 8 hours, so you're looking at about 80 quid for the day parking.
So you voluntarily got a parking ticket?
I'll get parking tickets, and you'll see vans all parked up, and even cars as well, getting parking tickets rather than pay the parking. It's just ridiculous now.
That is
make a living.
Completely mad. Tony, thank you for that. I wish you well. Let's play a couple of voice notes now. The first one on fat jabs from Maddie.
Hi Peter, don't get me started on those fat jabs. I went on holiday with a friend of mine just at the tail end of last year who has taken them. I mean, she lost the weight, but along with it, she's lost her mind. And it was probably the worst holiday I ever had because dinner times were the worst. All she did was say, oh, I feel sick, I can't eat my food, there's too much on my plate. It was becoming really difficult to do dinners with her. I wouldn't recommend them to anybody. I think they're awful, and I think that people do become obsessed with food. So this is Maddie from Essex, just giving my 2 pennies. Thank you.
Let's hope Maddie's friend doesn't hear that message, but listen, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Tina's in Norfolk and has some thoughts. I think you're on the fat jabs yourself, Tina, is that right?
That's correct.
And how much have you lost over what period? Tina, sorry, it's a bad line. We just can't hear you. We'll try and get you back on a better line. I want to play a voice note now from David on Greenland and what Sir Gerald Harth was saying a little bit earlier on.
Good afternoon, Peter. Sir Gerald is correct in his analysis, but wrong in his assumptions. NATO is basically America, with a very weak Europe on its coattails. Without America, NATO is irrelevant. Greenland, in 2009, when they got the rights to drill and start mining, said that they wanted independence. They wanted independence through the prosperity they were getting from partnering up with Chinese companies that were helping them with the drilling and the mining. That is what frightens America, and that's why Trump talks about taking over Greenland. And you can see why. David in the Cotswolds.
David, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think we've got Tina back on a better line. Tina, I think we can hear you now. Hello?
Hello, Peter.
Much better, much better. Tell us how much you've lost and over what period?
Over the last 6 months, I've lost nearly 3.5 stone.
That's a serious amount of weight to lose. And
it is, but it's not. I personally, I have an autoimmune condition, a hereditary one. I have psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. So
I'm sorry to hear that, Tina.
That's fine. I've lived with this the whole of my life.
Yes.
And it gives you anxiety and depression as well. So I take antidepressants, which I've reduced dramatically since I've been on the drug.
Yes.
And
so that's been a side effect that you perhaps weren't expecting.
Sorry?
That's a side effect you perhaps weren't expecting to be able to, or did you have to reduce the antidepressants?
I didn't have to, no, but I wanted to. I've lived with this condition the whole of my life, but I was always quite slender, and then obviously I hit menopause, and any woman that's had menopause and had really bad symptoms knows how much weight you put on, how depressed you feel the whole time. But with the weight loss drugs, I've made sure, and my partner, he makes sure I eat. I have 3 meals a day. I have something small for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and a home-cooked meal for tea. But I eat probably a third or a quarter of what I used to eat. And I feel so much better for it. I don't feel like my body's dragging. My body actually works properly. I mean, the whole process. I used to have quite bad stomachs, and obviously all the things that go with that.
It's clearly working well for you at the moment, Tina. What do you make of it when you hear of doctors saying you may need to be on them for life to keep the weight off?
My thought process is, I said to start with, I was going to do it for 12 months. Then after the 12 months, I would see how I went and whether I needed to do a small dose every couple of months just to top myself up. But it now means that I can get back into the swimming pool. I can walk further. I can do so much more because my joints aren't, because I've got psoriatic arthritis in my knees and hips. And I can walk so much better. I have so much more energy. So therefore, my intention is to keep the diet onto small amounts of food, but get outside, exercise. I've started yoga.
And actually change your lifestyle, which is the advice they give you. Tina, lovely to talk to you. Good luck with all of it. Let's speak to Lorraine in Oxfordshire, who I don't think took fat jabs. Lorraine, you lost weight a different way. Tell us about this.
Hi, Peter. I lost 10 kilos, and I wouldn't take the weight loss jab because I'd done my own research on it, but for many years I've been overweight, and I still am overweight. But
losing 10 kilos is no mean feat. Very well done.
Thank you. But how I did that was I did lots and lots of research because it was like being in a hamster wheel. I was addicted to sugar.
Right.
Probably didn't eat much more than somebody else that ate cakes every day or whatever, but it was like I couldn't get out of that. Every day you would wake up, you want something sweet. You go past the shop and think, oh, I want something sweet. And it was just constant. And it's been like that for many, many years in my life. And it was driving me around the bend. So I did lots of research and looked into how your insulin works and your leptin, your hormone that stops you from wanting to eat. And I gave up sugar. I mean cakes, biscuits and things like that. If I wanted something, I'd have a hot chocolate, and I have honey in my coffee. So those are the things that I carried on with. And I ate as much protein, i.e. nuts and, sorry, you can probably hear my cat scratching in the background.
It's all right, cats are always welcome on this programme.
So I in the morning, I would eat nuts and anything I could that was healthy to fill me up.
So can I just ask you, we're just coming to the end of the programme, Lorraine, I probably only have time for one more question. I just want to ask you, Lorraine, when you see people injecting themselves, and you see this kind of almost miracle cure that people are talking about for people being overweight, what do you think when you see those people? I'm sure you're not critical of them necessarily as individuals, but is it too easy just to medicate this? A bit of hard work and willpower is what has helped you in changing habits.
I think that there's not enough understanding, and I think the food, the people that produce all of this food that's full of rubbish and full of sugar, this is brilliant for them because they can keep producing all this rubbish food that everybody's buying and not educate people into knowing how they need to reduce the leptin to stop them craving food all day. I can go all day now without being hungry, and that's never happened to me, and that really is from just reducing my sugar.
Very interesting to hear that, Lorraine. Listen, thank you for that. Thank you to the texter. He says, more scaremongering, weather rubbish. It's winter, folks. Why do we need an over-the-top weather warning every time it's anything other than a calm breeze? We're pathetic now as a nation. 93 miles an hour winds. I think it's fair enough to tell the public about that, to have a red weather warning. Joan in Sunderland has some thoughts on the weather as well. Joan, final call of the day, just briefly. What would you like to say?
Hello.
Hi there.
I just was listening to you talking about the weather and how the government are giving people instructions.
Yes.
I wonder if the government has given our veterans, the homeless, instructions of how to turn up the nearest hotel, have a nice four-poster bed, some nice meals, or is it as usual, sleeping under viaducts and in shop doorways? Because obviously people who break into this country are regarded much higher in the pecking order than our own people.
Joan, that's a really good point, and thank you for it. That was Joan in Sunderland there. I do know there are some really good homelessness charities who do go out on the streets every night and say to people, there is shelter for you, we can get you in, and there's no need for anybody to sleep on the streets, because there are lots of good charities and lots of good organisations that can get them off the streets. Kevin O'Sullivan is with me now. Hi Kevin, how are you doing? You're here on the other side of the news. Tell us what's coming up.
Very smart woman, Joan from Sunderland, by the way. One of our favourite callers. Obviously, we're going to be looking at this mad Met Police DEI nonsense.
Crazy.
You know, how much longer is that guy, Sir Mark Rowley, going to be allowed to be our chief
How much
Keystone
longer can
cop?
Craig Guilford be Chief Constable of West Midlands Police?
I'll tell you why all this stuff keeps happening, all these scandals, all these police scandals, all these scandals all across the country, is nobody ever gets punished. Nobody, it's almost as
Lessons
if
will be learned, Kevin.
Yeah, well, if organisations start saying, right, who's responsible for this? People say, oh, well, you're bullying us, and they go to HR. You're not allowed to find the people who are responsible for these appalling balls-ups. And what we should be looking for is this panel, this weird panel of senior cops who were busy overturning decisions not to hire people who've been charged with rape, dodgy people. They were
responsible. They're the ones who signed this off.
Yeah, but they were reversing decisions, including this one rapist guy. It's unbelievable. So that, obviously we'll have a look at Rachel Reeves' ridiculous racism rant. You scrape away the surface of these Labour cabinet politicians, in fact Labour MPs generally, and they're just sort of silly little sixth formers calling everybody else racist.
Yeah. Some of them are. Some of them are quite brave people, like Joni Reid, I would say.
She's
great. Fantastic.
Yesterday.
Yeah, there are Labour MPs who are great, but many of them are not. And certainly to accuse Reform UK of being racist, hold on a second here. Let's not get into identity politics, but your head of policy and your candidate for Mayor of London, both Muslims.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't besmirch all Labour politicians, but too many of them are just like silly little student activists who just want to polish their own halos and call everyone else awful and right-wing and full of hate and racist. It's getting beyond a joke, and Keir Starmer's one of them, by the way. Also, we've got an extraordinary story. I love this story. Nicolas Cage is at the centre of a Nazi flag row in London.
What?
Yeah, there's
Nicolas Cage?
A film that he's in, they rented Waltham Forest Town Hall because it looks very German and austere, and it's a World War II drama, and they draped, they wanted to drape Nazi flags all over it. Waltham Forest Council had given their permission, and then they